Chapter 1888. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. As a top divine spirit expert who had proven his Tao in the recent ancient times and had the complete inheritance of a hidden family, Zhongli Mingjing was very familiar with the formation of the gods' tribulation lightning punishment and the nature of the heavenly Tao. Even though the heavenly Tao had temporarily lost its monitoring of the Tianxian continent due to the transformation of the heavenly Tao and its dormant state. However, Yu Haoran's forceful intervention in Wu Jingjuan's god's tribulation lightning punishment was a blatant provocation to the heavenly Tao and a trampling on the iron law set by the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao should instinctively take action to punish. It should not choose to sit by and do nothing. Unless Yu Haoran had the means to not be detected by the heavenly Tao. According to the records in the family library, only the spirits of three annihilation, who could control the consciousness of the heavens, and the child of destiny, who could control fate, had the means to hide from the heavenly Tao. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing had doubts about Yu Haoran's true identity. He suspected that he might have an identity with a special mission. Qingyang, give me a detailed introduction of the Yushu Temple's Heavenly Palace Master, Ji Xing's growth, including some of his private life and nature. Since he already had doubts in his heart, Zhongli Mingjing immediately planned to use the method of comparison to verify whether his previous guess was correct. If his guess was wrong, then so be it. However, if his guess was correct, then the union of Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin would bring unimaginable benefits to the Zhongli family. Yes. After Zhongli Qingyang responded, he began to introduce Ji Xing's life in detail, as well as some of his private life that only the top forces knew. Pain. When the lightning flames touched his skin, an unimaginable pain caused Yu Haoran's expression to turn ferocious. The pain caused by the lightning flames was not only physical torture, but also a heavy blow to the deepest part of his soul. Even though he had the tenacity of 2 lifetimes, the dual torture of his body and soul made him somewhat unable to hold on. He wanted to give up and escape. Yu Haoran, consolidate your foundation and focus your mind. Use the heavenly mandate mantra to absorb the pure spiritual energy. Seeing that Yu Haoran only knew how to endure the pain caused by the lightning flames and didn't absorb a part of the divine vein's spiritual energy that had been extracted, Faling immediately used a special secret method to remind him. Using the Faling's special secret method to temporarily awaken his consciousness, Yu Haoran hurriedly activated his self-created heavenly mandate mantra, and then gradually guided the pure spiritual energy that surrounded him into his body. As soon as the pure spiritual energy entered his body, his physical body, which had been tortured by the lightning and flames, began to devour it like a hungry man who had seen a delicious meal. No matter if it was an exotic flower, herb, or treasure, as long as it reached the first level, it would be able to advance to the God level, and the quality of the spiritual energy and energy it contained would also undergo a transformation. The quality of the pure spiritual energy contained in the low-grade first-level divine vein was not inferior to the divine power condensed by a martial god expert. This was also the reason why Faling was confident that Yu Haoran could use the low-grade first-level divine vein to surpass Wu Jingjun in strength. Therefore, the moment the pure spiritual energy entered his body, Yu Haoran could clearly feel that the grade of his physical body had advanced by leaps and bounds, even though his consciousness was not very clear. Boom! 5 seconds later, a muffled sound of thunder resounded from Yu Haoran's body. Mysterious patterns immediately appeared on his ancient bronze body under his blue clothes. 1, 2, 3. In the end, the number of patterns that appeared reached 99. Fortunately, under the cover of the blue clothes, Zhongli Mingjing did not see the number of mysterious patterns that appeared on the surface of Yu Haoran's physical body. Otherwise, he would not have needed to understand Yu Haoran's life experience and temperament to be able to confirm Yu Haoran's identity. This was because the grade of the physical body, the number of mysterious patterns condensed when advancing to the martial god realm represented how high one's martial achievement was. For example, the achievement of condensing 99 mysterious patterns was basically the limit of a living being's potential. The moment the 99 mysterious patterns merged with his physical body, a tyrannical and powerful aura quickly rose, directly dispersing the lightning and flames that enveloped him, and rushed to the gathering dark clouds in the sky. Just as the tyrannical and powerful aura was about to enter the dark clouds, Thawing in the sea of consciousness hurriedly reminded, "You Howren, immediately control the aura of your breakthrough. You cannot disturb the dark clouds that symbolize the laws of heaven, nor can you completely block the lightning and flames tempering." The tyrannical and powerful aura dispersed the lightning and flames that surrounded Yu Howren, causing him to quickly wake up from the double torment of pain. Therefore, after hearing Thawing's reminder, he immediately withdrew the tyrannical and powerful aura that erupted when his physical body broke through and let the lightning and flames envelop him again. At the same time, because his physical body had successfully advanced to the martial god realm, his pain tolerance had increased by at least 10 times. Even if Yu Howren was roasted by the lightning and flames again, he would not lose consciousness because of the pain. After Yu Howren was once again enveloped by the lightning and flames, Thawing in the sea of consciousness continued to remind him, "Yu Howren, continue to use the pure spiritual power of your divine veins to improve your physical body grade and Yuanli. Try to guide the lightning and flames to temper your spirit in the sea of consciousness. Try to let your spirit and Yuanli advance to the martial god realm at the same time." Alright. Yu Howren was obviously a little hesitant about Thawing's suggestion of tempering his spirit. This was because, compared to a strong physical body that could withstand a certain amount of damage, a little damage to the fragile spirit would cause great harm to the entire body, which would affect the subsequent breakthrough of the auxiliary realm. However, if he used the lightning and flames to temper his spirit, it would be able to break away from its fragile side and become as hard as a physical body. In this way, not only would he be able to withstand more powerful attacks, but it would also be an unimaginable help to him when he tried to break through to the Supreme Realm in the future. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Yu Howren finally decided to take the risk and try it. He clenched his teeth and guided a trace of the lightning and flames into the sea of consciousness through his glabella. Then, it slowly merged into his spirit at the speed of a turtle. Pain. The pain of his spirit being torn apart made him feel as if he would rather die. However, compared to the pain caused by the lightning and flames just now, this pain was not beyond the limit of what he could bear. Therefore, even though his entire face was distorted by the pain, Yu Howren still maintained a clear mind and was still able to control the lightning and flames to temper his spirit. Chapter 1889. Above the Blood Mist Mountains. After 99 times of tempering, the pain of his soul being torn apart had completely disappeared. His divine soul was as strong as a supreme-grade venerable realm defensive magic weapon and had reached the level of martial god. Feeling that the power of the thunder flame was weakening, Yu Howren did not waste any more time and immediately absorbed the purified spiritual power to break through to the martial god realm. Boom! Boom! The moment the thunder flame completely disappeared, 2 muffled thunders came from Yu Howren's body. A terrifying aura that could shatter the void quickly rose from his body. However, in less than 3 seconds after the terrifying aura appeared, it disappeared without a trace. It did not disturb the dark clouds above the mountains at all. His state of mind cultivation, physical grade, divine power, and divine soul had all been successfully upgraded. Next, he only needed to integrate the mysteries of the law of life and death into his divine soul to directly break through to the divine soul realm. However, with the experience of breaking through to the martial sage, martial venerable, and Emperor Wu, he would not consider breaking through to the martial god realm in a short time. Yu Howren slowly opened his eyes and looked at Wu Jingjun, who was fiercely fighting the deity Tribulation Shenlong with the help of the Avicii divine sword. Yu Howren, whose strength had increased by leaps and bounds, let out a long laugh. He immediately took out the Yuan killer sword and rushed toward the deity Tribulation, Shunlong. Soul break. Mobilizing all the strength he had just broken through, together with the Yuan killer sword, he performed the peak divine level sword technique inherited from the Destiny Stone Tablet to directly attack the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's huge head. With the help of the consciousness given by the Spirit of Three Annihilation and the remaining thunder energy of the deity Tribulation, the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon condensed by the ninth Thunder Tribulation had the strength of an early third-grade martial god. Wu Jingjun, who was constantly consolidating his realm through the battle, was able to quickly increase his combat strength from the early martial god realm to the peak of second-grade martial god realm. At the same time, with the help of the top innate spiritual treasure sword, his combat strength was further enhanced. Therefore, in the face of Wu Jingjun, who was not much weaker than himself and dared to risk his life, the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon began to be at a disadvantage. His confident laughter made the deity Tribulation Dragon turn its head to take a look while resisting Wu Jingjun's attack. When it saw Yu Haoran rushing over with the Yuan killer sword in his hand, a trace of panic flashed across the dragon's huge eyes. When it sensed the sharp sword intent from Yu Haoran's swordsmanship that had reached the peak of the third-grade martial god realm, its panicked expression was immediately replaced by fear. Pooh! Pooh! Under the influence of fear, Wu Jingjun immediately grasped the flaw of the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon. The sharp sword chi condensed from the Avicii Divine Sword in his hand forcefully broke the tough defense of the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's body and almost cut it in half. At the same time, Yu Haoran's sharp sword chi struck the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's head, almost splitting it in half. Roar! The deity Tribulation Divine Dragon could not bear the pain of being almost cut in half or having its head almost cut in half. Knowing that it could not resist the joint attack of Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun, the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon was influenced by the consciousness bestowed by the three spirits of destruction. After it roared at the sky, a violent and destructive aura quickly rose from its body. Jingjun, retreat quickly. The violent and destructive aura made Yu Haoran immediately guess the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's idea. He quickly reminded Wu Jingjun with a sudden change of expression. Senior brother, retreat first. Wu Jingjun, who also knew the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's plan, did not listen to Yu Haoran's order. Instead, he sped up and rushed toward the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon. Boundless Blood Sea. When he was less than 3 meters away from the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon, Wu Jingjun suddenly roared and exploded his body first. Then, countless blood instantly gathered into a blood sea, directly wrapping around the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon that was about to explode. Under the influence of the devouring aura in the blood sea, the violent thunder and lightning energy that had been stimulated in its body was drawn out uncontrollably from the wound on its waist and head. Then, after being transformed by the blood sea devouring technique, it was turned into pure energy and absorbed by Wu Jingjun. Roar! The loss of the violent thunder and lightning energy in its body completely destroyed the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon's idea of dying together with Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun through self-explosion. After it let out an unwilling cry, it had no choice but to give up the idea of continuing to struggle and let Wu Jingjun devour the thunder and lightning energy that had condensed into its body. There was no roar of self-explosion, only an unwilling cry. Yu Haoran, who had already guessed that the deity Tribulation Divine Dragon had completely given up resisting, flashed back to the edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. Then, he sat down cross-legged in the air and began to consolidate the power that had broken through. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was sitting down cross-legged, although his cultivation had not directly advanced to the immortal martial god realm, the aura emitted from his body was not inferior to that of a peak third-grade martial god. Zhongli Mingjing, who had already guessed his true thoughts, had a complicated look in his eyes. Through Zhongli Qingyang's description of Ji Xing's life experience, and then combined with Yu Haoran's actions just now, he could basically confirm his true identity. However, when he thought of the harm that his family had caused to Ji Xing and the accumulated hatred between them, the complicated look in his eyes was gradually replaced by determination. After that, Zhongli Mingjing withdrew a blank jade slip from the independent space he'd created, and he used his divine sense to record 9 types of top-rate precious treasures within the jade slip. After that, he passed the jade slip to Zhongli Qingyang and instructed, "Qingyang, once we return to Sunset Lake, immediately go to the family's secret storehouse and take out the 9 treasures marked in the jade slip." Zhongli Qingyang asked with a shocked expression after he received the jade slip from Zhongli Mingjing and scanned it with his mind. "Ancestor Mingjing, what are you planning to do with these treasures? Don't ask too much for now. I'll give you a satisfactory answer after this." Zhongli Mingjing was only guessing. Before he received Yu Haoran's personal confirmation, or before he used a special treasure to examine the treasures, Zhongli Mingjing did not want to reveal this secret that could shake the entire profound sky continent. As a result, he could only answer Zhongli Qingyang's questions vaguely. Just as Zhongli Mingjing finished answering Zhongli Qingyang's questions, Yu Haoran, who was consolidating his cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the central region. "Pil God Yu, what's wrong?" Yu Haoran's unexpected gaze in the direction of the central region immediately attracted Zhongli Mingjing's attention. He immediately used his peak 9th grade martial god divine sense to investigate. However, he found nothing in the end. A friend has come from afar. Chapter 1890. The Edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. A friend is coming from afar. After hearing Yu Haoran's cold reminder, Zhongli Mingjing frowned slightly and immediately used his divine telekinesis to search the void in the direction of the central region again. However, the result was still fruitless. In fact, it was not only Zhongli Mingjing who did not discover his friend hiding in the void. Even Thaling, who was using the space-time energy in his sea of consciousness, did not find anything either. "Yu Haoran, are you mistaken?" Thaling asked with a puzzled look in his eyes. After all, with the quality of his divine telekinesis and the help of the space-time energy, he could even detect a supreme. In response, Yu Haoran did not reply to Thaling's question. Instead, he returned to the side of the blood sea that Wu Jingjun had transformed into and looked at the void 10,000 meters away with a provocative greeting in his eyes. Junior Yu Haoran greets Senior Huang Zhizhong, Senior Lan Zhenjian, Senior Lu Chuanxi, Senior Huaxing Weihua, and Senior Shangguan Shunping. Unfortunately, in the face of Yu Haoran's provocative greeting, the void 10,000 meters away did not give any response. After hearing Yu Haoran's greeting, Zhongli Mingjing's expression changed slightly. He took a step forward and took out a green seed the size of a soybean. As he threw the green seed into the void 10,000 meters away, his 10 fingers quickly formed seals. When Zhongli Mingjing formed the first seal and merged with the green seed through the barrier of spacetime, the green seed began to sprout at a speed visible to the naked eye. When all 9 seals had merged with the green seed had grown into a towering tree. Countless branches, leaves, and roots covered the entire void. At the same time, Thaling in his sea of consciousness immediately mobilized the 32 chaos seals and used his divine telekinesis to recheck the void that Yu Haoran was staring at. However, the result of the recheck was still fruitless. Yu Haoran did not stop Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing from using special methods and secret techniques to search. While he continued to observe the 10,000 meters of space, he also used his mind to discuss with the life-stealing spirit mouse how to deal with the enemy. In truth, the reason why he had been able to discover the enemy hiding in the void ahead of time and know their true origins and identity was completely because the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse had sensed 5 auras of fate that were filled with intense hostility towards him approaching. Then, through the names carved on the Destiny Stone steel, He knew where they were hiding and their exact origins. "Master, there's some trouble," the black rat reminded with a serious expression as it retracted its claw from the name carved on the Destiny Stone steel. "When I used the Destiny Stone steel to control his fate, I felt that his fate aura contained a trace of something very special. It was somewhat similar to the protection of law power. Moreover, this trace of rule power is far stronger than mine. I'm afraid I won't be able to use fate manipulation to weaken it for the time being." Although Yuhauran was slightly surprised by the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse's warning, he was not too surprised. This was because the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse had basically deduced that the 5 experts hiding in the void were only 7th grade to 9th grade martial gods based on the auras collected by the Destiny Stone Steel. With Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing's strength and the strength of their divine senses, it was impossible for the enemy to hide from their divine senses. However, the result was, even after using their trump cards and secret techniques, Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing were still unable to discover the enemy's existence. This was enough to prove that there was definitely an extremely powerful and terrifying existence secretly helping them. Combined with the Fate Calamity Spirit Mouse's discovery of the power of law in the enemy's sea of consciousness, Yuhauran was 100% certain that the powerful and terrifying existence secretly helping them was definitely the spirit of heaven controlled by the 3 spirits of annihilation. Elixir Godyu, the technique I used just now was a secret treasure and secret technique left behind by the Eternal Green Ancestor. Even a supreme existence at the sovereign realm would not be able to avoid the control of the creaking leaves and roots of the divine tree. Zhongli Mingjing, who had not discovered anything, asked in a cautious tone as his eyes were filled with doubt after he withdrew the green seed that had turned into a towering tree. "Did you make a mistake?" Although Thaling in the Sea of Consciousness did not ask further, his eyes were also filled with doubt. In response, Yuhauran's reply was very simple. He mobilized all his strength and combined it with the Yuan Massacre sword in his hand to display the blood-red sword chi condensed by the sword technique. He directly slashed at a point in the void 10,000 meters away. Boom! Just as the blood-red sword chi was about to hit the spot that the divine sense had locked onto, an even more powerful sword chi blocked the path of the blood-red sword chi. After successfully dispersing the blood-red sword chi, the powerful sword chi slashed at Yuhauran at lightning speed. Before Yuhauran could block the powerful sword chi, Zhongli Mingjing, who had taken a step forward, waved his sleeve and used the powerful wind from his sleeve to disperse the powerful sword chi. Zhongli Mingjing said through gritted teeth as he watched a middle-aged man in his 40s walk out of the tear in space. He was dressed in a long green robe and looked to be in his 40s. The 128th sect master of the Flowing Clouds sect, Huang Zhizhong. So it's the protection of the power of the rules. Thaling, who had also seen Huang Zhizhong walk out of the tear in the void, reminded Zhongli Mingjing with a solemn expression. Yuhauran, this guy's cultivation is only at the peak of the 6th grade martial god. The reason he was able to avoid the detection of Zhongli Mingjing and my divine sense is because the spirit of 3 annihilation used the power of the rules bestowed by the heavens consciousness. In other words, the spirit of 3 annihilation, whose cultivation has reached the sovereign realm, might attack. So, you have to be careful. Got it. As he nodded in response to Thaling's reminder, Yuhauran hurriedly used his divine sense to summon Qing Feng, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, and Palace. Brother Lan, Brother Lu, Brother Hua, Brother Shangguan, since the other party has already discovered our presence, let's all come out and greet them. Ignoring Zhongli Mingjing, who was gnashing his teeth, Huang Zhizhong, who had a smug smile on his face, turned his head and called out to the empty void. As soon as Huang Zhizhong's voice fell, 4 forcibly torn rifts appeared in the void about 100 meters away from him at the same time. Then, a white-haired old man in a blue robe, a silver-haired old man in a white robe, a middle-aged man in a black robe, and a middle-aged man in a brocade robe walked out. the 108th sect master of the Lan clan, Lan Xinjiang, Lu Chuanxi, who ranks 6th among the top 10 rogue cultivators in recent times, Hua Xingwei, the 103rd sect master of the Xiandao school, and Shangguan Shunping, the 99th sect master of the Shangguan clan. Chapter 1891. In the void above the blood mist mountains. Just as Thaling and Yu Haoran had guessed, Huang Zhizhong and the others, whose cultivation and strength were far inferior to his, must have been helped by the spirit of annihilation, who had reached the supreme honorable stage and could control the will of the heavens. What worried Zhongli Mingjing even more was that Huang Zhizhong and the others were not only martial god stage divine spirit experts, but they also represented various top forces. Even Lu Chuanxi, who was a lone cultivator, had the loose alliance behind him that was no less powerful than the reclusive clans and top sections. Since Huang Zhizhong and the others had obeyed the spirit of annihilation's order to deal with Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun, it meant that the forces behind them had chosen to ally with the Yushu Temple. The Lan and Shangguan clans of the reclusive clans, the Flowing Cloud sect and Xiandao school of the top sects, and the loose alliance with countless lone cultivators. The alliance of these top forces was enough to shake the 4 great guardian clans. Moreover, they had the spirit of annihilation, who could control the will of the heavens, behind them. Brother Mingjing, we haven't seen each other for 36 million years after the Battle of Mount Tai. Just as Zhongli Mingjing was worrying about the Tianxian continent situation, 2 white-haired elders and 2 middle-aged men walked out of the void crack and came to Huang Zhizhong's side. Shangguan Shunping, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, looked at Zhongli Mingjing and sighed with a complicated expression. But what I never expected was that we would meet on the battlefield and fight to the death when we met again. Brother Shunping, among the hundreds of old friends from the Battle of Gods back then, less than 5 of us were able to survive the destruction of the ancient times and the long river of history. The fact that we were able to survive was not only because of the protection of Providence, but also because of luck. More importantly, we acted cautiously and did not participate in the disputes of any forces. Shangguan Xuanping's sigh immediately triggered Zhongli Mingjing's memories. He thought of how they had joined forces to fight the enemy in the Battle of Gods back then, and how they had drunk so much after their failure. Brother Shunping, why did you choose to become Spirit Destroyer's subordinate this time and work for the Yushu Temple so humbly? Brother Mingjing, with your cultivation and identity, you should know that the immeasurable calamity this time is completely different from the ancient times, middle times, and recent times. You won't be safe just by being cautious. Shangguan Shunping shook his head and replied. Brother Shunping, even if you're choosing to ally with them, you don't have to work with the cold, heartless, and inhumane spirits of destruction. Zhongli Mingjing tried his best to persuade him. Zhongli Mingjing, the 3 spirits of annihilation control the will of the heavens, and Destiny's child decides the fate of the heavens. If we don't choose to work with the 3 spirits of annihilation and Destiny's child, are we going to work with this lowly peasant beside you? Before Shangguan Shunping had time to respond to the persuasion, Lan Xinjiang, who was standing beside him, immediately took a step forward, his eyes full of contempt and ridicule. Senior brother Qing Feng, are you sure you can kill them? After hearing Lan Xinjiang's ridicule, Yu Haoran's expression did not change, but an infinite killing intent immediately surged in his heart. However, Lan Xinjiang's cultivation was at the early 7th level of the martial god realm. Under the premise that he could not control Lan Xinjiang's fate, he was no match for him at all. Therefore, he could only ask Qing Feng, who had the strength to kill Lan Xinjiang. In response to Yu Haoran's request for help, Qing Feng thought for a moment and then said with a frown, Junior brother Yu, although the other party's cultivation doesn't seem to be high, for some reason, I can clearly feel that there is a power hidden in the other party's consciousness space that can kill me. Therefore, I have no confidence that I can successfully kill the other party. The power that could make Qing Feng, a peak 9th level martial god realm expert, feel a strong sense of fatal danger must be the rule power that the three spirits of annihilation gave to him through the will of the heavens. Therefore, as long as he could block the explosion and threat of the rule power, with Qing Feng's strength, he could easily kill Lan Xinjian and the other four. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only turn to Thaling for help. In response to Yu Haoran's request for help, Thaling shook his head and explained, Yu Haoran, unless my cultivation can recover to the peak of the martial god realm, I can't suppress the explosion of the rule power for the time being. Even Thaling, the innate treasures device spirit, did not have the means to deal with the rule power. This made Yu Haoran very frustrated, and he had to consider a temporary retreat. Whether it was retreating to the Sunset Lake, where the Zhongli family was located, or to the prince's mansion in Fengrun City, with the top formation that integrated both attack and defense, he could completely resist and severely injure Lan Xinjian. However, when he saw Wu Jingjun, who was about to devour the 9th Tribulation Thunder, and was about to receive the reward of the gods' Tribulation Thunder, the thought of retreating in his heart was immediately extinguished. After all, the 9th Tribulation Thunder was only the foundation for Wu Jingjuan's transformation. The reward of the gods' Tribulation Thunder was the key to his true transformation. Since Qing Feng and Thaling were unable to deal with Lan Xinjian's group of 5, who were protected by the rule power, then he could only risk exposing Destiny's Child and the Destiny Stone Steel. By overdrawing 2/3 of his lifespan as the price, he could use the Destiny Stone Steel as a weapon to resist the rule power bestowed by the will of the heavens. Master, although I can't use the aura of destiny to weaken him, I can use the laws of destiny within the Destiny Stone Steel to restrict the power of the laws in his sea of consciousness so that he can't borrow the power of the laws. Just as Yu Haoran was about to overdraw his lifespan in exchange for the power to activate the Destiny Stone Steel, the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, who had placed its claws on the Destiny Stone Steel again, suddenly reminded him. If Violet Spirit is willing to help, I can even use the Destiny Stone Steel to completely seal the rule power in their sea of consciousness, allowing Master to borrow the rule power to increase his comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws. Abruptly stopping his action of overdrawing his lifespan, Yu Haoran forcefully suppressed his shock and asked, Brother Black Rat, are you sure? Master, Black Rat never lies. The Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat solemnly reminded him. Taking a deep breath and forcefully suppressing the joy in his heart, Yu Haoran told Thaling about the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat's idea of sealing the rule power. No problem. Thaling, who had a better understanding of the rule power, knew that not only could the rule power increase one's comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws, it could also help Yu Haoran completely grasp the remaining spatial laws. Therefore, when faced with the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat's suggestion, Thaling nodded in agreement without hesitation. After receiving Thaling's agreement, Yu Haoran turned his head and asked Qing Feng. Chapter 1892. In the Sky Above the Blood Mist Mountain Range. In response to Yu Haoran's question, Qing Feng, who had taken out his natal sword, replied confidently. Junior Brother Yu, as long as you are able to restrict the eruption of that power in the opponent's sea of consciousness, then I have the confidence to kill the person who humiliated you just now in one move, and at most 2 moves to kill the other 4 people. Alright, then Senior Brother Qing Feng, wait for my orders. After nodding and instructing Qing Feng, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at Lan Xinjian, who was 10,000 meters away, with a look of disdain in his eyes. No matter how low my status is, I, Yu Haoran, am still a righteous person. I am much better than a certain person who only knows how to bend his back and chase after a fish, and is willing to be a dog. Brat, you're courting death. Yu Haoran's blatant insults immediately made Lan Xinjian's hair stand on end. He roared and quickly took out his natal sword and charged over. Lan Xinjian, with me, Zhongli Mingjing, here, you can forget about harming Pil God Yu. Zhongli Mingjing, who had already guessed Yu Haoran's true identity, was worried about how to eliminate his resentment and dissatisfaction toward the Zhongli clan. Now that Lan Zhenjian was charging over with a murderous aura, it gave him a chance to ease the tension and get closer to him. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing directly walked up to Yu Haoran and displayed his awe-inspiring righteousness. He clenched his right fist and punched out with a low-grade divine rank fist technique. "Senior Mingjing, be careful." Yu Haoran was very pleased that Zhongli Mingjing took the initiative to block Lan Zhenjian's attack for him. At the same time, he immediately warned him with concern. "Don't worry, Pil God Yu. He's just an early-stage 7th-grade martial god ant. Watch how I'll easily kill him." Yu Haoran's concern and warning made Zhongli Mingjing immediately realize that his actions of taking the initiative to show his goodwill had won him some goodwill. This made him secretly sigh in relief. At the same time, he also planned to use a thunderous method to kill his opponent and take revenge for Yu Haoran's humiliation. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing immediately used his spiritual force to increase the power of his fist technique. Facing Zhongli Mingjing, whose cultivation was at the peak of the peak 9th grade martial god realm, who executed a primary grade divine rank fist technique, Lan Zhenjian, whose cultivation was only at the early 7th grade martial god realm, did not show the slightest trace of fear. Instead, a strange smile appeared in his eyes. At the same time, he immediately activated the energy of laws within his sea of consciousness, and then combined it with the profound mysteries of the laws that he had comprehended. He directly unleashed his strongest attack. Gravity Mountain Quake. With Lan Zhenjian's soft shout, an invisible ripple that transcended time and space instantly destroyed the power of the fist technique. At the same time, it continued at a speed that was close to teleportation, appearing in front of Zhongli Mingjing. Ancient Descent, Evergreen Possession. Just as Lan Zhenjian used the profound laws of martial skill to easily destroy the power of the fist art, the experienced Zhongli Mingjing immediately guessed that the spirits of 3 annihilation must have given Lan Zhenjian and the others secret arts and methods that could greatly increase their strength through controlling the will of the heavens. As such, when faced with the profound laws of martial skill that instantly arrived in front of him, Zhongli Mingjing did not dare to be careless. He directly used the supreme defensive secret technique that his ancestors had created through his bloodline inheritance. As a wave of energy that radiated with the aura of the vicissitudes of time landed on Zhongli Mingjing's body, it condensed into a set of dark green armor. And just as the defensive armor formed, the power of the profound mysteries of the laws struck his body. Boom! With a deafening rumble, Zhongli Mingjing's expression changed drastically as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The powerful impact that the defensive armor could not withstand caused him to involuntarily retreat. Fortunately, Yu Haoran, who was standing behind him, immediately activated his newly evolved divine energy and successfully blocked the impact of the profound laws of martial skill. At the same time, he also sent a rank 1 grade 1 healing pill into Zhongli Mingjing's mouth. Many thanks. With the help of the healing pill that Yu Haoran had given him, Zhongli Mingjing quickly stabilized his injuries. He first thanked Yu Haoran before reminding Yu Haoran with a grave expression. Pil God Yu, Lan Zhenjian's sea of consciousness contains the power of laws that the will of the heavens bestowed upon him. He uses the power of laws to cast the profound laws of martial skill, and its power is infinitely close to the strength of a first tribulation sovereign. As such, we must immediately return to the Sunset Lake and use the Autumn Wind Soulfall formation to block the opponent's attack. Senior Mingjing, you don't have to worry. I have my own methods to deal with the power of laws, Yu Haoran said with a smile as he let go of Zhongli Mingjing's back. Afterwards, he walked in front of Zhongli Mingjing and quickly formed seals with his fingers to cast a sealing technique. However, when faced with the sealing technique that Yu Haoran was casting, whether it was Zhongli Mingjing behind him or Lan Zhenjian and the others in front of him, they all revealed a trace of doubt in their eyes. This was because the seals that Yu Haoran had formed were only the most ordinary sealing techniques. Not to mention the power of laws bestowed upon him by the will of the heavens, he probably wouldn't even be able to seal the ordinary martial skill cast by a martial saint expert. Ignoring the doubt in everyone's eyes, Yu Haoran continued to speed up the formation of the seals with an extremely confident expression on his face. In fact, regardless of whether the seals that were being formed were ordinary or unfathomable, they were of no use in sealing the power of laws in the sea of consciousness of Lan Xinjiang and the others. Now, he was only putting on an act by condensing the seals to attract everyone's attention. Then, he would create an opportunity for the Fate Calamity Spirit Rat and Faling to work together to seal the power of laws. At the same time, he was trying his best to conceal the existence of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Fate Calamity Spirit Rat. Seal. When the Fate Calamity Spirit Rat and Faling began to seal the power of laws in Lan Xinjiang's Sea of Consciousness, Yu Haoran controlled the 9 seals that had been condensed and shouted at Lan Xinjiang. Faced with the 9 seals that Yu Haoran had condensed and the soft shout that had no aura at all, Lan Xinjiang not only did not immediately dodge or defend, but instead, he placed his hands behind his back and looked at Yu Haoran with a contemptuous sneer in his eyes. However, when the 9 seals that Yu Haoran had condensed successfully merged into his body, the contemptuous look in Lan Xinjiang's eyes was instantly replaced by panic. Without any hesitation, he quickly retreated and hurriedly used his mind to sense the power of laws in the sea of consciousness. However, the result was that not only was the power of laws successfully sealed, but the sealed power of laws had also disappeared into thin air in the sea of consciousness. Seal. Chapter 1893. In the void of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. Although he didn't believe that the ordinary spell imprint Yu Haoran had just condensed could seal the power of the rules bestowed by the will of heaven, Huang Zhizhong, who was cautious, was not careless at all when Lan Xinjiang's expression suddenly changed and he quickly retreated. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately mobilized his divine power and soul power, and then quickly set up a defensive layer to prevent the spell imprint from approaching. Originally, it was very difficult to condense an ordinary seal spell imprint to penetrate the defense set up by a peak 6th level martial god expert, but Yu Haoran still had a faint smile on his face, and he continued to control the spell imprint to continue to approach the defense set up by Huang Zhizhong. However, just when the 9 spell imprints reached the defense layer, they suddenly disappeared into thin air. Immediately afterward, the vigilant Huang Zhizhong's expression suddenly changed, and then he quickly retreated like Lan Xinjiang. In fact, the 9 spell imprints that disappeared into thin air just now were secretly collected by Yu Haoran. The real reason why Huang Zhizhong's expression was empty was the sealing method jointly cast by the doomed spirit mouse and Faling. Ignoring Huang Zhizhong, who had already been hit, Yu Haoran looked at the rogue cultivator expert Lu Chuanqi. At the same time, Qing Feng, who could sense that the power in Lan Xinjiang's sea of consciousness that could threaten him had disappeared, immediately chased after him with extreme speed. And Zhongli Mingjing, who had stabilized his injuries with the help of the healing divine pill, rushed toward Huang Zhizhong with murderous intent. Retreat. Lan Xinjiang and Huang Zhizhong's actions were enough to fully prove that Yu Haoran had the means to seal the power of the rules, so after losing his strongest trump card, he was definitely no match for Qing Feng and Zhongli Mingjing, who were peak 9th level martial gods. Therefore, when he saw Yu Haoran looking at him, Lu Chuanqi directly turned around and tore the void without hesitation, and reminded Hua Xingwei and Shangguan Shunping. It's too late to leave now. Looking at Lu Chuanqi, who turned around to tear the void, Hua Xingwei and Shangguan Shunping, who were also preparing to tear the void, Yu Haoran immediately controlled the 27 incantation marks to rush towards Lu Chuanqi and the other 2. At the same time, his consciousness informed the Calamity Spirit Mouse and Faling to hurry up and make a move. After Lan Xinjiang and Huang Zhizhong's sealing experience, the doomed spirit rat and Thaling, who could only seal one rule power, not only did they have a better understanding of the strength of the rule power, but they also found the experience and method to seal it faster. Therefore, when Lu Chuanxi, Hua Xingwei and Shang Guan Shunping stepped into the crack in the void, not only was the power of laws bestowed upon them by the will of the heavens, but it was also transferred to the victor through special means by the Thaling. Damn it! Qing Feng, who killed Lan Xinjian in one move, was about to keep his promise to kill the other 3 people, but he found that the targets he needed to kill had escaped through the crack in the void. This made him roar immediately. When he also planned to chase down by tearing the void, Yu Haoran's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Senior fellow apprentice Qing Feng, you don't need to use the means of tearing the void to chase, because they can't escape at all. Looking at the edge of the blood mist mountain range, Yu Haoran reminded with a chuckle. Bang bang bang! Just as Yu Haoran's reminder just sounded, 3 loud crashing sounds immediately came from the edge of the blood mist mountain range. Accompanied by the loud crashing sound, Lu Chuanxi, Hua Xingwei and Shang Guan Shunping fell out of the crack in the void in a sorry state. Junior fellow apprentice Yu, what's going on? Looking at Lu Chuanxi and the other 2, who were in a slightly sorry state, Qing Feng's eyes revealed a puzzled expression as he asked. The 9-palace 9-turn mystic formation that was used to seal the Sunset Lake. Yu Haoran explained with a smile. In fact, as early as when he ordered Qing Feng, Yu Siki, Lu Yuan and Palace to guard the 4 sides of the Blood Mist mountain range, he had already used his divine thought to inform the 81 elite soldiers hidden around the Sunset Lake to quickly rush to the Blood Mist mountain range. Just as he interfered with Wu Jingjuan's God's Tribulation Thunder Punishment and joined forces to deal with the God's Tribulation Dragon condensed by the 9th Lightning Tribulation, the 81 elite soldiers successfully arrived at the edge of the Blood Mist mountain range. Moreover, according to the range involved in the God's Tribulation, all the preparations for the simplified version of the 9-palace 9-turn mystic formation were set up in advance. Therefore, when the life-stealing spirit rat indicated that it could use the rule of destiny contained in the Destiny Stone Tablet to seal the rule power in the opponent's Sea of Consciousness, he immediately ordered the 81 elite soldiers to set up the 9-palace 9-turn mystic formation, which successfully stopped Lu Chuanxi and the other 2 who wanted to escape. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, a trace of shock flashed through Qing Feng's eyes when he held his sword and attacked Lu Chuanxi and the other 2. This was because he did not expect Yu Haoran to have such a thorough understanding of human nature, nor did he expect his plan to be so unfathomable. Yu Haoran's plan against Lu Chuanxi and the other 2 made Qing Feng immediately think of his master, Zhen Yuanzi, who was also proficient in planning. The shock in his eyes was immediately replaced by fear. Lu Chuanxi and the other 2 who had lost the protection of the rule power were like docile sheep facing a hungry wolf when facing Qing Feng, whose cultivation was at the peak of the 9th-level martial god. They were easily slaughtered by him. After withdrawing his gaze from Qing Feng, Yu Haoran turned to look in the direction of the southern region with a complicated look in his eyes. Although he had used the method of condensing an ordinary seal to avoid the explosion of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, with the Spirits of Annihilation's ability to sense the power of laws and their experience in the ancient, middle, and recent ancient times, they should be able to deduce his identity as the Destiny's Child. Then, in the face of Ji Xing, the fake Destiny's Child who had been carefully cultivated for decades, and himself, the real Destiny's Child who had obtained the recognition of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the life-stealing Spirit Rat, what choice would they make in the end? In the nameless valley in the southern region, just as the life-stealing Spirit Rat and the Thaling formation successfully sealed the rule power in Lan Xinjian's Sea of Consciousness, the old man in the Taoist robe, who was sitting cross-legged on the silver chessboard, suddenly opened his eyes and said to the old man in the silver moon Taoist robe and the old man in the starry Taoist robe with a look of surprise in his eyes, "Silver moon starry, I have found the whereabouts of the Destiny's child. Burning Sun, who is the Destiny's child? Starry, whose eyes also suddenly opened, immediately asked. It's him. Using the unique destructive power, Burning Sun condensed a handsome young man in a dark blue robe according to the last trace of consciousness of Lan Xinjian before his death. How could it be him? Seeing the confident eyes of the young man in the dark blue robe and the sneer at the corner of his mouth, Starry, who suddenly stood up, shouted in shock. Chapter 1894. In the nameless valley in the southern region. Scorching sun, silver moon, the young man in blue is Yu Haoran. He's the only prince consort of the Qin kingdom, the great Emperor Qin of the southern region. He's also the double champion of the Hidden Dragon list in the southern region and the 5 regions. Fan Xing sat back down on the chessboard and introduced with a wry smile in her eyes. He's the first alchemy emperor and alchemy deity in millions of years. He's also a top genius in formation emperor. He's one of the few dangerous people who can threaten us. It's him. Hearing Fanxing's detailed introduction, Silvermoon suddenly remembered what she had done with Fanxing. She couldn't help but sigh with a wry smile. Fanxing, Silvermoon, what's wrong with you? Starry and Silvermoon's strange expressions made Scorching Sun realize that something was not quite right. He quickly asked. After a brief exchange of glances, Fanxing, who had arranged to kill Yu Haoran, explained with a wry smile. Scorching Sun, this is what happened. When you were in the void. Hearing Fanxing's detailed description of the conflict she once had with Yu Haoran, Zhuori slightly frowned and closed her eyes. She began to think about how to resolve the enmity between her and Yu Haoran, as well as the price she would have to pay to make up for her mistakes. After nearly 3 minutes of thinking, Scorching Sun opened his eyes and asked Fanxing, Fanxing, did the killers you arranged hurt Yu Haoran in the end? No. Fanxing hurriedly explained as she shook her head in denial. When Yu Haoran broke through to Alchemy Emperor and Formation Emperor, I arranged the Twinkling Brilliance team to kill him twice. But the Twinkling Brilliance team was attacked by Carefree Valley when they were less than 1,000 miles away from the valley. In the end, they didn't even see the assassin's face. How could they hurt Yu Haoran? Haha. The assassin's assassin was killed by a sneak attack, which was a direct challenge to the dignity of the 3 spirit destroyers. Hearing this news, Burning Sun should have been very angry, but he couldn't help laughing happily. After laughing heartily for nearly a minute, Zhuori finally stopped laughing and said with a relaxed expression, Stars, Silvermoon, it seems like we should properly thank the Carefree Valley Lord. Otherwise, we'll have to pay an unimaginable price to obtain Yu Haoran's forgiveness. After hearing Scorching Sun mention the price and forgiveness, Silvermoon and Stars frowned and looked at each other. In the end, it was Silvermoon who voiced her doubts. Scorching Sun, from your tone just now, it seems that we have to take the initiative to submit to Yu Haoran, and even pay a certain price to obtain his forgiveness? That's right. Burning Sun nodded in confirmation. Why? Silvermoon asked in confusion. Because Yu Haoran is the child of destiny who can start and end the immeasurable calamity. He's the key to us being able to break away from the Spirit Destroyer constitution. He's the key to whether we can completely suppress the heavenly axiom and become the masters of the world. Facing Silvermoon's question, Burning Sun looked excited and clenched his fists. Silvermoon didn't relax her frown because of Burning Sun's exciting explanation. She began to refute Burning Sun's explanation one by one. First of all, the 3 spirit destroyers can smoothly start the immeasurable calamity with the help of the destruction energy accumulated during the ancient, middle, and recent ages. We'll also obtain the only opportunity to become immortal. Second, the calamity that the Tianxian continent is facing this time is a calamity that can destroy everything. The entire world will return to chaos. We can completely steal the chaos essence that nurtures all things in the chaos and rebuild the ancestral body of the ancient times. We'll completely break away from the spirit destroyer constitution and become immortal. Finally, according to Star's monitoring of the 4 great guardian families, we can basically confirm that the plan that they've been preparing for countless years can definitely deal a heavy blow to the dormant heavenly axiom. When the time comes, we'll use the doomsday chessboard to directly destroy the severely damaged heavenly axiom and replace it as the only masters of the world. Therefore, Burning Sun, we don't need the Child of Destiny's help at all. We don't need to humbly apologize. Not only did Burning Sun not show the slightest dissatisfaction with Silvermoon's rebuttal, he even nodded in agreement from time to time. After Silvermoon's rebuttal, Burning Sun turned to look at Stars, who agreed with Silvermoon and asked with a smile, "Stars, do you have anything else to add?" Shaking her head, Stars indicated that she didn't have anything to add. After withdrawing his gaze from Stars, Burning Sun turned to look in the direction of the eastern region. The smile on his face was gradually replaced by a solemn expression. "Silvermoon, there's a very important premise to realize the plan you just mentioned. That is, all the plans must be under our control. There can't be any changes." "That's right." While nodding in agreement with Burning Sun, Silvermoon's 10 fingers quickly formed a seal and used the seal to fuse with a mirror. Then, he cut his finger and forced a drop of blood into the surface of the mirror. After that, the image of the Blood Mist Mountains began to appear on the surface of the mirror. "Burning Sun, although Yuhauran is the true child of destiny, he's limited by the time he's been cultivating and the teachings he's received. It's impossible for him to have the ability to interfere and destroy our plans." Silvermoon's eyes revealed a trace of contempt as he pointed at Yuhauran, who was standing in the air in the mirror. Furthermore, the summoning order that Ji Xing issued using his identity as Destiny's Child has already gathered nearly half of the forces in the entire Profound Sky continent. We completely have the ability to force the 4 great guardian families to launch a sneak attack on the heavenly law in advance. At the same time, we can also take advantage of the opportunity to eliminate Yuhauran and completely nip the problem in the bud. Burning Sun, Silvermoon is right, Stars, who was unwilling to bow down to Yuhauran and admit her mistake, quickly nodded in agreement. "Silvermoon, Stars, what if the countless experts that Ji Xing has gathered can't successfully kill Yuhauran?" Burning Sun, who had regained his smile, asked in return. "More than 100 martial god realm divine spirit experts, and more than 4,000 demigod realm false god realm experts. I believe that even if Yuhauran has the protection of the Child of Destiny, he won't be able to escape death in the end." Stars, who was in charge of contacting Ji Xing, was very clear about the true strength of the countless forces gathered by the summoning order. Therefore, when faced with Burning Sun's question, she replied with a trace of arrogance. Chapter 1895. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. Rumble. Just as Yuhauran was considering what choice he would make in the end, a loud rumbling sound came from behind him like a tsunami. After forcefully shaking his head to get rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind, he turned around to look at the source of the rumbling sound. He discovered that in the dark clouds above the mountain range, countless milky white energies were pouring down like a waterfall. In the end, all of them fell into the sea of blood that Wu Jingjun had transformed into. Looking at the milky white energies rewarded by the god's tribulation lightning, whether in terms of quantity or quality, they were far superior to the second tribulation lightning's reward. Yuhauran's eyes revealed a trace of envy and anticipation. He envied Wu Jingjun for being able to use the god's tribulation lightning's reward to completely transform his cultivation base and strength. At the same time, he looked forward to his own god's tribulation lightning's reward. "Yuhauran, I just carefully examined the sealed power of laws. I discovered that the origin energy contained within the 5 powers of laws can not only allow your comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws of life and death to advance to greater mastery, but it can also be used with the void fruit to increase your comprehension of the supreme law, the law of the West, the law of the North, and the law of the upper and lower laws. Just as he envied and anticipated Wu Jingjuan's God's tribulation lightning's reward, Thaling's excited voice suddenly came from his sea of consciousness. Really? After hearing Thaling's reminder, the envy and anticipation in his eyes were instantly replaced by surprise. Yu Haoran asked excitedly. That's right. As he nodded to confirm, Thaling continued excitedly. Moreover, as long as you can successfully comprehend the 12 auxiliary powers of laws, then with the help of the pure spatial energy contained within the space crystal and my guidance, you can attempt to break through the law of space, which is ranked 3rd among the tens of thousands of powers of laws. The law of space that Thaling mentioned made Yu Haoran wild with joy. He could not help but clench his fists tightly, and his breathing gradually became heavier. The law of space not only allowed him to teleport with the fastest speed in the world, but also allowed him to use law attacks such as space slicing and space shattering. The grade and power of these law attacks were not inferior to sovereign-level martial skills. If he could successfully comprehend and control the power of the laws of space, and improve his understanding of the profound mysteries of the laws of space, even if the 3 spirits of annihilation ultimately chose to nurture the fake son of destiny, Ji Xing, and chose to be his enemy. In that case, he would be able to use the laws of space to protect his loved ones and launch a fierce counterattack. Thaling, Brother Black Rat, thank you. It was because of the selfless help of the life-stealing spirit rat and Thaling that he was able to obtain such a heaven-defying opportunity. Therefore, no matter how excited he was, Yu Haoran did not forget to thank them. Master, this is what I should do. Faced with Yu Haoran's gratitude, the spirit mouse hurriedly explained. However, from the way he squinted his small eyes, he was still very concerned about Yu Haoran's attitude. Junior brother Yu, what's wrong? Qing Feng, who had returned to the edge of the mountain range, could not help but frown and ask when he felt the intense emotions in Yu Haoran's body. Senior brother Qin Feng, I'm fine. After taking 3 deep breaths, he barely managed to calm down his wild joy. After shaking his head at Qin Feng, Yu Haoran used his mind to inform the 81 elite soldiers at the edge of the mountain range. He ordered them to withdraw the 9-palace 9-turn mystic killing formation and immediately return to Fengrun City. Then, he continued to consolidate his realm as he watched the blood sea devouring the rewards of the gods' tribulation lightning. Half an hour. The milky white energy that washed down from the dark clouds like a waterfall lasted for nearly half an hour before it gradually weakened and finally disappeared completely. Break. The moment the gods' tribulation lightning ended, Wu Jingjuan's arrogant roar suddenly came from the blood sea. Accompanied by the arrogant roar, a terrifying aura that could directly shatter the void rose rapidly from the blood sea. At the same time, it directly dispersed the dark clouds that had gathered above the mountain range and continued to rise. The cultivation of an early 4th-grade martial god. Seeing the terrifying aura soaring into the sky, Zhongli Mingjing, who had also returned to the edge of the mountain range, was extremely shocked and envious. After all, Wu Jingjuan's cultivation had just reached the early 4th-grade Emperor Wu's cultivation before he broke through to the martial god realm. With the double promotion of his special body constitution and realm, he had achieved a breakthrough of an entire realm. Anyone who saw this situation would be envious and jealous. When the aura in the blood sea reached its peak and gradually began to fall, Yu Haoran walked toward the blood sea and waved his hand to signal Zhongli Shuiqin to come over. Senior brother. When the aura of the breakthrough completely disappeared, Wu Jingjuan, who had no time to consolidate his realm, immediately stopped the blood sea secret technique and bowed respectfully to Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran nodded to Wu Jingjuan and quickly condensed 9 seals on his fingers. Then, he used his mind to control 5 seals to merge with Wu Jingjuan's body and 4 seals to merge with Zhongli Shuiqin's body. Roar! Roar! When the 9 seals merged with Wu Jingjuan's and Zhongli Shuiqin's bodies, the pure cries of dragons and phoenixes immediately rang out from their bodies. Accompanied by the cries of dragons and phoenixes, miniature versions of the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix rushed out from between Wu Jingjuan's and Zhongli Shuiqin's eyebrows. Then, as the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix soared into the sky, their bodies began to rapidly expand. When the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix reached 1,314 meters in the air, their bodies had already recovered to 9,999 meters in height. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix hovering in the air. He took a deep breath and continued to form 19 seals with his 10 fingers. Then, he used his mind to control the 18 seals and merge them into the Divine Dragon and Divine Phoenix. Roar! Roar! The moment the 18 seals merged with the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix, the Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix roared into the sky. As they hugged and entwined with each other, countless purple gas appeared out of nowhere and began to envelop them. Condense! When the purple gas had completely enveloped the Purple Divine Dragon and Purple Divine Phoenix, Yu Haoran used his mind to control the remaining seal to merge with the purple gas. Then, he shouted softly. Then, the purple gas quickly gathered and solidified. Finally, it turned into a marriage contract. Yu Haoran stretched out his hand to recall the contract that was floating in the air. Then, he used his mind to add the names of the 3 distinguished guests on the contract. Then, he turned his head to look at Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang. Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang communicated with each other through their mind while facing Yu Haoran's gaze. When they finally reached an agreement, Zhongli Mingjing nodded and responded. Chapter 1896. In the void above the Blood Mist Mountains. After receiving Zhongli Mingjing's approval, Yu Haoran instructed Wu Jingjuan and Zhongli Shuiqin to extract a portion of their divine will and soul power into the contract before throwing it into the air. Pa! When the contract reached a height of 1,314 meters, it suddenly shattered into 36 invitation cards that were emitting purple light. Each invitation card clearly showed the name and origin of a force or an expert. Immediately after, 36 purple invitations flew in all directions of the Tianxian land at an extreme speed that transcended time and space. After the 36 invitation cards disappeared without a trace, Yu Haoran retracted his gaze and walked towards Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang. Wu Jingjuan and Zhongli Shuiqin looked at each other before holding hands and hurriedly following him. Senior Mingjing, clan leader Qingyang, since the engagement between Jingjuan and Miss Shuiqin has been concluded and the wedding invitation has been sent out, this junior's mission is considered complete. Therefore, I shall take my leave first. Whether it was the power of the laws that could help increase one's mystical powers or the remaining 70% of the low-grade Tier 1 divine bloodline, they were all treasures that could increase one's cultivation and strength quickly. However, if he wanted to use these 2 treasures to increase his cultivation and strength, he needed to cultivate in seclusion. Hence, Yu Haoran didn't want to delay any longer. He wanted to return to the prince's mansion as soon as possible. Pil Godyu, don't be anxious. Zhongli Mingjing shook his head and smiled at Yu Haoran's eagerness to leave. According to the customs of the Tianxian continent, the woman who accepts the proposal should give a portion of the gift back to the man. Hence, Pil Godyu should return to Sunset Lake with Mingjing for the time being. Alright. Although he wanted to return to Fengrun City as soon as possible, he considered the tense relationship between him and the Zhongli family. If he suddenly left, it would not only be rude, but it would also affect their close cooperation. At the same time, Yu Haoran thought about the Zhongli family's long history and the mystery of their ancestor, the Evergreen Sovereign. He was actually looking forward to the other party's gift in return. Therefore, he did not hesitate and nodded in agreement. Just as Yu Haoran nodded and accepted Zhongli Mingjing's invitation, the long-armed ape that was moved to the edge of the mountain range suddenly roared towards the sky. Accompanied by a thunderous roar, the long-armed ape's body began to rapidly expand. Moreover, a thick baleful aura that even Qing Feng and Zhongli Mingjing could not approach surged out from its body. Yu Haoran, this is the transformation of your bloodline and constitution. Thaling, who was cleaning up the remnant consciousness left behind by the spirits of 3 annihilation with the life-stealing spirit rat, was also alarmed by the long-armed ape's roar. Looking at the long-armed ape that was over 10,000 meters tall and its black hair was gradually replaced by purple hair, he reminded with a look of surprise in his eyes. Thaling, through the transformation of your bloodline and constitution, will the long-armed ape be able to completely transform into a long-armed divine ape? Thaling's reminder made Yu Haoran immediately think of the bloodline of the long-armed ape, and his heart was filled with anticipation as he asked, "Yes." While nodding to confirm, Thaling's eyes also revealed a look of anticipation as he explained. As long as the long-armed divine ape does not exist in this world, then the long-armed ape that has more than half of its ancestral bloodline will eventually be able to successfully transform into a long-armed divine ape and possess the strength of a peak sovereign. Thaling's explanation immediately reminded Yu Haoran of the introduction of the 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys in the inherited memories of the Destiny Stone Tablet. He knew that such a heaven-defying spiritual creature that was born in this world was unique and special. Therefore, he immediately mobilized his divine thought to collect the black hair that had fallen from the long-armed ape, as well as the baleful aura during the transformation process. Then, he used the calculation technique of a peak grandmaster of Formula Tao to calculate whether there were still living long-armed divine apes in this world. The final result of the calculation made Yu Haoran extremely satisfied. This was because not only did the long-armed divine ape not exist in the Tianxian continent, but even the number of descendants that inherited the bloodline of the long-armed divine ape was very rare. There was only the long-armed ape in front of him. This also fully proved that the long-armed ape had a very high chance of transforming into a long-armed divine ape that possessed the ability to control the sun and moon, shrink 1,000 mountains, distinguish right from wrong, and manipulate the universe. Since the result of the calculation was very successful and satisfactory, Yu Haoran was no longer worried about the atavistic transformation of the long-armed ape. After directly shattering the black hair in his hand and dispersing the baleful aura that he had collected from the long-armed ape, he was about to end the calculation technique when he suddenly remembered his promise to Thaling to find the mark of chaos. Considering that the atavistic transformation of the long-armed ape required a certain amount of time, and that the current environment was not suitable for cultivation, Yu Haoran thought that since he had nothing to do, he might as well use this opportunity to calculate the whereabouts of the remaining mark of chaos. He collected a trace of the aura of the mark of chaos from his spirit, then used Fushi's 8 trigrams calculation technique to calculate the remaining 34 mark of chaos. However, just as the calculation technique was activated, the aura of the mark of chaos increased rapidly, and he could not help but be stunned for a moment. After that, combined with the aura change when he successfully calculated the first mark of chaos, Yu Haoran quickly realized that in the blood mist mountains beneath his feet, not only were the marks of chaos that Thaling had been painstakingly searching for hidden, but there were far more than one. Continuing to maintain the aura of the mark of chaos, Yu Haoran raised his head and instructed Qing Feng and Zhongli Mingjing. "Senior brother Qing Feng, Senior Mingjing, I'll have to trouble you to protect Senior Long-Armed Ape for the time being. I have a very important personal matter that needs to be dealt with immediately." "Alright. No problem. Qing Feng and Zhongli Mingjing nodded in agreement at the same time. Following the guidance of the aura change of the Mark of Chaos, Yu Haoran turned around and headed straight for the depths of the Blood Mist Mountains. Yu Haoran, what are you doing? Thaling asked in confusion. Although the long-armed ape's bloodline and physique metamorphosis couldn't give him any inspiration, as a person worth trying to rope in, Yu Haoran leaving at the crucial moment of the other party's metamorphosis would probably make the long-armed ape very disappointed, and it might even affect the close cooperation between them. Thaling, I just used Fushi's 8 trigrams calculation technique to calculate that there are at least 2 marks of chaos hidden in the Blood Mist Mountains, Yu Haoran explained casually as he sped towards the depths of the mountains. Yu Haoran, what did you just say? Thaling's spirit body suddenly trembled, and his eyes revealed a look of disbelief as he asked. Chapter 1897. In the Blood Mist Mountains. After getting Yu Haoran's confirmation, Thaling's eyes were filled with ecstasy. Then, he immediately mobilized the 32 marks of chaos and the space-time energy in his body, and started to check the entire underground of the Blood Mist Mountains carefully with the help of his divine thought. When he locked and sealed the lower level 1 holy pulse, his divine thought had already checked almost 2/5 of the Blood Mist Mountains. Therefore, with the help of the marks of chaos and the space-time energy, Thaling directly sealed the holy pulse and continued to check deeper into the mountains. In the end, it took him less than 5 minutes to find a chaos mark 9,000 meters underground. However, when his divine thought reached the mark of chaos, he saw a group of spirit-devouring ants crawling around the mark of chaos. At the same time, Thaling gasped and finally knew why he could not sense the aura of the mark of chaos in advance. Because the spirit-devouring ants like to live in groups, they were born with the ability to hide the aura of treasures and block the divine thought. Moreover, the strength of the ability to hide and block was related to the number of spirit-devouring ants living in a group. If the number of spirit-devouring ants was more than 10,000, they could block the divine thought of Emperor Wu and hide the aura of Emperor Realm treasures. If the number of spirit-devouring ants was more than 100,000, they could block the divine thought of martial gods and hide the aura of God Realm treasures. If the number of spirit-devouring ants was more than 1,000,000, they could block the divine thought of supreme masters and hide the aura of supreme-level treasures. If the number of spirit-devouring ants was more than 10,000,000, they could not only block the divine thought of Emperor Wu and hide the aura of treasures. For the hundreds of millions of creatures in the entire Tianxian continent, it was completely equivalent to the disaster of ancient times, the Middle Ages, and the recent ages. This was because the spirit-devouring ants had the terrifying ability to swallow everything, devour everything, be fearless of life and death, and destroy everything. In their eyes, as long as it contained a trace of life essence, it was food that they could not give up. It was the pursuit that they were willing to give up their lives for. After carefully counting the number of spirit-devouring ants around the mark of chaos, he found a total of 360,000 sleeping spirit-devouring ants. Looking at the 360,000 sleeping spirit-devouring ants in front of him, Thaling's eyes showed a look of hesitation. Originally, with his cultivation restored to the peak of level 3 martial god, he could easily kill 360,000 spirit-devouring ants and eliminate the hidden dangers of Tianxian continent. Thinking of the 4 Guardian Families, World Purification Seal, and the 4 Guardian Families, World Purification, and Hell organizations all had the strength and ambition to threaten Yu Haoran's safety, he wanted to keep spirit-devouring ants as a trump card to dies. He wanted spirit-devouring ants with the ants with him with thems as a trump card. After thinking about it for a while, the idea of protecting Yu Haoran's safety finally prevailed. The Tower Spirit decided to keep the 360,000 spirit-devouring ants in front of it. S's. Of S with God, devouring God devouring him. Therefore, while taking out the chaotic imprint, the pagoda spirit secretly set up a divine-level sealing array formation around the 360,000 spirit-devouring ants with the help of the god sleeping elixir used to test its medicinal efficacy. Then, his divine thought quietly returned to the sea of consciousness with the mark of chaos. Thaling, how many marks of chaos have you found? Yuhauran hurriedly asked when he felt the aura of the mark of chaos in the sea of consciousness. Only one for the time being. Keeping the mark of chaos in his body's victor, Thaling replied while mobilizing his divine thought to continue searching. After all, Yuhauran had just mentioned that there might be more than 2 marks of chaos hidden under the Blood Mist Mountains. The second search did not take long. Thaling vaguely sensed the aura of another mark of chaos about 3,600 meters away from the first one. When his divine thought successfully reached the location of the mark of chaos, the smile on Thaling's face was immediately replaced by seriousness. This was because there was still a group of sleeping spirit-devouring ants crawling around the second mark of chaos. At the same time, after a careful count, he found that the number of spirit-devouring ants was also 360,000. This time, after Thaling took out the mark of chaos, he did not set up a formation to seal the spirit-devouring ant. Instead, he quietly returned to the sea of consciousness and instructed Yuhauran with a serious expression. Yuhauran, immediately use your maximum formula Dao ability to calculate the whereabouts of the mark of chaos again. Try to confirm the exact number of marks of chaos hidden in the Blood Mist Mountains. Yuhauran could feel the seriousness and worry in Thaling's tone, so he did not ask why he had to calculate again. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground of the Blood Mist Mountains and began to calculate again with the help of the mark of chaos he had just obtained. Perhaps it was because he was fully focused on the calculation, or perhaps it was because of the mark of chaos, but the second calculation process was not only smoother, but he also successfully calculated the exact number of marks of chaos and the specific hiding location. Thaling, there are still 3 marks of chaos hidden in the ground of the Blood Mist Mountains. While informing him of the specific number, Yuhauran also used his divine thought to mark the specific location of the 3 marks of chaos. Through the information provided by Yuhauran, Thaling successfully found the remaining 3 marks of chaos and also discovered the 360,000 spirit-devouring ants crawling around the marks of chaos. The total number of spirit-devouring ants around the 5 marks of chaos was 1.8 million, which was enough to threaten the Tianxian continent. Therefore, Thaling's original plan to keep the spirit-devouring ants as a trump card was slightly shaken at this moment. He was worried that his selfish thoughts might bring an unimaginable disaster to the billions of people in the Tianxian continent and Yuhauran. Thaling, what's wrong with you? Seeing that Thaling had successfully retrieved the 5 marks of chaos, not only did he not show the slightest excitement and joy, but he also suddenly became silent, which made Yuhauran feel very strange. Since he could not make the final choice, he might as well give the choice to Yuhauran and let him decide the final fate of the 1.8 million spirit-devouring ants. Therefore, Thaling told Yuhauran everything about the spirit-devouring ants under the Blood Mist Mountains, the number of spirit-devouring ants, and the possible harm they might bring. Thaling, there's nothing to think about. Immediately find a way to kill all the spirit-devouring ants. After hearing Thaling's explanation, Yuhauran directly ordered without hesitation. Although he wanted to use the spirit-devouring ants to deal with the Xiandao school, the Flowing Cloud sect, the Lan family, the Shangguan family, the 4 great guardian families, and the spirits of 3 annihilators who could control the consciousness of heaven, he knew that he absolutely could not let the billions of people in the Tianxian continent face the danger of extinction because of his selfish thoughts. Chapter 1898. In the Blood Mist Mountains. Okay. Since it was Yuhauran who took the initiative to kill all the spirit-devouring ants, Thaling did not hesitate or persuade him. He put the 3 marks of chaos that he had just obtained into the victor, then quietly sneaked back into the ground and directly used the secret method of divine thought to kill the spirit-devouring ants. Perhaps it was because the entire spirit-devouring ant colony had fallen into a deep sleep, or perhaps it was because they were too scattered and could not really exert the strength of a colony, but Falling's slaughter process was very smooth. It only took less than 5 minutes for the 1.8 million spirit-devouring ants to be completely destroyed. You Howren, all the spirit-devouring ants under the mountain have been killed by me. Next, I will perfectly integrate the 5 marks of chaos into the Ru-E-Bell and let it experience the first transformation of an innate spiritual treasure. So, if there is nothing very important, I hope you will not disturb me easily. Withdrawing his divine thought from killing the spirit-devouring ants and returning to the sea of consciousness, Falling solemnly said a few words, then directly entered the victor with the Ru-E-Bell. According to the detailed records of the spirit-devouring ants in the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance, Yuhauran was worried that Falling was not keen on directly killing the spirit-devouring ants. If he was careless and did not completely kill them, it would leave a hidden danger for the spirit-devouring ants to rise from the east. So, when Falling entered the victor with the Ru-E-Bell, he immediately merged into the ground of the mountain with the help of the earth spirit bead, and then went straight to the place where the spirit-devouring ants were killed. About 30 meters away from where Falling found the first mark of chaos, Yuhauran, who had merged into the ground with the earth spirit bead, smelled a very strong and pungent smell of blood. But in addition to the pungent smell of blood, there was a faint trace of a special aura that could completely boil divine power and soul power. After forcefully suppressing the boiling divine power and soul power in his body, Yuhauran immediately reread the records of the spirit-devouring ants in the Destiny Stone Tablet's inherited memories. He finally found the real reason why his divine power and soul power were boiling. A terrifying light flashed in his eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, Yuhauran suddenly sped up and rushed to the place where the spirit-devouring ants were slaughtered. He immediately mobilized his divine thought to check carefully. In the end, he found a spirit-devouring ant that was nearly twice the size of an ordinary spirit-devouring ant and had 2 light purple antennae among the hundreds of thousands of stacked spirit-devouring ants. She is indeed an ant queen that gave birth to an entire colony. When he found the special spirit-devouring ant, Yuhauran showed a look of expectation in his eyes. Then, he directly mobilized his divine thought to forcibly tear apart the body of the spirit-devouring ant. Finally, he found a hexagonal, light blue crystal at its tail. He used the means of wrapping his divine thought to retrieve the hexagonal crystal. After carefully inspecting it with his naked eyes and divine thought, his eyes immediately showed a look of ecstasy. It seems that the records in the Destiny Stone Tablet's inherited memories are not wrong. The spirit-devouring ant colony's queen really has a primordial crystal that contains pure primordial spiritual chi. Primordial spiritual chi was a kind of spiritual chi that was diluted by chaos spiritual chi. It was a kind of energy that was far superior to heaven and earth spiritual chi in terms of quality and level. In ancient times, the reason why the Monster Clan, Underworld Clan, God Clan and Demon Clan were extremely powerful, in addition to their special physiques, was directly related to the primordial spiritual chi that they used to improve their cultivation and strength. However, compared with the primordial spiritual chi that the powerful clans absorbed in ancient times, whether it was the quality of the primordial spiritual chi or the effect of assisting in the improvement of cultivation and strength, it was slightly inferior. More importantly, in the Destiny Stone Tablet's inherited memories, there was a formation that could use primordial crystals of 5 different attributes to condense pure chaos spiritual chi. If the primordial spiritual chi's effect of improving cultivation and strength was equivalent to that of a level 1 divine elixir, then the primordial spiritual chi's effect of improving cultivation and strength was equivalent to that of a supreme divine elixir of a level 1 divine elixir. Only when one's cultivation of alchemy reached the supreme divine elixir would one have the ability to refine the supreme divine elixir. Moreover, the primordial spiritual chi contained a trace of principal origin energy, which was the foundation and key to accelerating the breakthrough to the supreme divine elixir. Quickly putting away the primordial crystal of fire attribute in his hand, Yuhaoran controlled the earth's spiritual pearl and accelerated to the second colony of spirit-devouring ants that had been slaughtered by Thaling. Fortunately, not only did he succeed in finding a primordial crystal, but it was also a primordial crystal of water attribute. Without further delay, he continued to use the Earth's spiritual pearl to search for the remaining 3 colonies of spirit-devouring ants that had been slaughtered by Thaling. In the end, he successfully found a primordial crystal of wood attribute, a primordial crystal of metal attribute, and a primordial crystal of earth attribute. Chapter 1899. In the underground of the Bloodline Mountain Range. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. When the number of spirit-devouring ants' corpses reached 73,650, it was suddenly forcibly retracted by the 2 antennae. Less than 1 centimeter away from the purple energy was the slightly larger corpse of the ant queen. The 2 antennae retracted the purple energy and instantly appeared in front of the ant queen's corpse. One of the antennae was directly attached to the tail of the ant queen's corpse. 1 second. After only 1 second, the antennae that quickly left the tail of the ant queen's corpse disappeared into thin air and then appeared in front of the second group of spirit-devouring ants that was slaughtered. Using the same method and at the same time, after quickly inspecting the ant queen's corpse, the 2 antennae once again disappeared into thin air, and then reappeared in front of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th spirit-devouring ants that had been slaughtered. After confirming that the primordial crystals in the corpses of the 5 ant queens had disappeared, the 2 antennae began to tremble violently at the same time, and at the same time, the antennae began to spray out countless purple energy. Whether it was the remaining spirit-devouring ants' corpses or the hard and thick soil, they all turned into endless dust under the impact of the purple energy. At the moment when the long-armed ape quickly returned to the edge of the mountain range, it had successfully completed the process of atavism transformation of its bloodline and physique. After the light purple hair completely replaced the black hair, the originally violent and unruly long-armed ape not only had a gentle and pleasing aura, but also gave people a kind of noble and elegant temperament. At the same time, the peak of the 7th stage of the Martial Emperor realm had successfully reached the limit of the 9th stage of the Martial Emperor realm, and it already had the strength to directly break through to the Divine Beast realm. Looking at the long-armed ape that had returned to its 2-meter height, Yuhaoran quickly walked forward and took out a special jade box from the storage ring. When he handed the special jade box to the long-armed ape, Yuhaoran also gave his most sincere congratulations and blessings. Senior, there is a ginseng fruit in the jade box. It is a congratulatory gift from Junior to you. Congratulations on successfully taking the first step of atavism. At the same time, I sincerely wish you to become the long-armed ape that can take the sun and moon, shrink thousands of mountains, distinguish between right and wrong, and manipulate the universe. Thank you, young friend. As early as Yuhaoran and Qin Lingfei's wedding, he had already secretly told Yuhaoran about his bloodline inheritance, so the long-armed ape was not at all surprised that Yuhaoran could guess the transformation he had just undergone. However, when he heard that Yuhaoran's gift was actually the ginseng fruit, one of the 3 spiritual roots, he hurriedly declined. However, the ginseng fruit is too precious. I can't accept it. Senior, all of Yuhaoran's relatives, friends, and elders basically all have 1 ginseng fruit each, so please don't be polite with me, otherwise I will be angry. Yuhaoran forcefully stuffed the jade box into the hands of the long-armed ape as he jokingly explained. All right then. Looking at the jade box with the ginseng fruit in his hand, the long-armed ape recalled Yu Haoran's seemingly joking but was actually sincere in his explanation. A trace of gratitude flashed in his eyes as he nodded and accepted the jade box. On the other hand, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang's eyes were filled with envy and admiration. As a warrior's body had a certain level of drug resistance, the more the same kind of elixir was taken, the worse the effect would be, even if it was a level 1 divine elixir. Therefore, many warriors who requested elixirs from alchemists would only ask for 1 or 2 elixirs after the elixir was formed. However, the ginseng fruit was different from the elixirs refined by alchemists. Because the ginseng fruit was condensed from the innate spiritual energy transformed by the spiritual roots, not only did it contain high-quality and pure innate spiritual energy, but it was also mixed with a trace of the origin of laws. Therefore, no matter how many ginseng fruits one took, the effect on cultivation and strength would be the same, and there would not be any weakening or reduction. Senior Mingjing, let's go back to Sunset Lake. He was anxious to return to the prince's mansion in Feng Run City and then work with his second clone to use the 5 innate crystals of different attributes to set up a formation that could condense chaotic spiritual energy. Therefore, just as the long-armed ape put away the jade box with the ginseng fruit, Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded Zhongli Mingjing. "All right." After nodding in response, Zhongli Mingjing took the lead to tear the void in front of him and then stepped into the void crack to leave the Blood Mist Mountains. Then, Yu Haoran and the others used the same method to leave the Blood Mist Mountains. However, just as the void was about to return to normal, the ground of the entire Blood Mist Mountains suddenly collapsed, and the depth of the collapse was close to 10,000 meters. When the ground of the entire mountain range collapsed, a giant spirit-devouring ant that was over 100 meters tall and shining with golden light appeared out of thin air in the deep pit of the mountain range. It looked at the void that had just returned to normal with its cold and emotionless eyes. The 2 dark purple antennae on the top of the giant spirit-devouring ant's head began to tremble quickly and shot out 2 purple energies. The 2 purple energies circled around the edge of the mountain range, and the void, that had returned to normal for a while, then returned to the antennae of the giant spirit-devouring ant. Then, where the giant spirit-devouring ant's gaze was focused on, the phantoms of 2 people gradually appeared. One was an elegant middle-aged man in a purple robe, and the other was a handsome young man in a dark blue robe. When the appearance of the elegant middle-aged man and the handsome young man were completely clear, the giant spirit-devouring ant raised its front legs and began to stomp on the ground of the deep pit. Boom! Accompanied by the continuous roar, the impact of the stomping of the front legs began to quickly spread in all directions of the Blood Mist Mountains, as well as the area outside the mountain range. It didn't take long before a middle-aged man dressed in black appeared in front of the giant spirit-devouring ant with shock waves under his feet, and he knelt down on one knee and saluted. "Heijio greets Jail King. Find these 2 people immediately and bring them to my palace." Although the giant spirit-devouring ant did not open its mouth to speak, the thunderous voice sounded in the entire Blood Mist Mountains. After hearing the command of the giant spirit-devouring ant, Heijio looked up at the appearance of the elegant middle-aged man and the handsome young man, then he immediately accepted the order respectfully. "Yes, sir." Immediately afterward, Heijio directly activated the escape talisman and disappeared in front of the giant spirit-devouring ant. The giant spirit-devouring ant looked at the appearance of the elegant middle-aged man and the handsome young man, and a cruel sneer appeared in its emotionless eyes. Sunset Lake, in the palace of the island. After returning to the meeting hall of the palace, Zhongming Qingyang immediately arranged the maids in the family to serve the spirit fruits and spirit tea again. Zhongli Mingjing went directly to the family's secret warehouse to take the 9 treasures that were given to Yu Haoran in return. The waiting time was not very long. Just after tasting a cup of spirit tea, Zhongli Mingjing, with a faint smile on his face, walked into the meeting hall. At the same time, 9 beautiful women in pure white dresses followed behind him. They were gorgeous and had an otherworldly temperament. Chapter 1900. In the Zhongli clan's meeting hall. He didn't walk towards the dragon throne at the center of the hall, nor did he return to the wide chair on the left. Zhongli Mingjing directly walked in front of Yu Haoran, and then turned his head to nod towards a beautiful woman carrying a tray. Then, the beautiful woman carrying the tray slowly walked in front of Yu Haoran and bowed respectfully to greet him. After the beautiful woman bowed, Zhongli Mingjing reached out and picked up the pill bottle on the tray. He did not play any tricks and directly poured out a sparkling pill the size of a longan fruit from the pill bottle. It emitted a strong fragrance. A rank 1, grade 1 Purple Heart demon-breaking pill. After seeing the pill that Zhongli Mingjing poured out, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise and joy as he spoke of the origin of the pill. Ever since the white gas inside the Destiny stone tablet had used a part of his potential as the price to help his mental cultivation advance to the martial god realm without him knowing, he had been thinking of ways to make up for that part of his potential that had been overdrawn. However, he had been too busy with work and lacked the best medicinal ingredients, so he had been unable to calm down and refine the pill that could make up for the overdrawn potential. A rank 1, grade 1 Purple Heart demon-breaking pill could not only make up for the overdrawn potential, but it could also greatly increase the mental cultivation of the martial god realm. That's right. It is a rank 1, grade 1 Purple Heart demon-breaking pill. As he nodded to confirm, Zhongli Mingjing put the pill back into the pill bottle and directly handed the pill bottle to Yu Haoran. Thank you, Senior Mingjing. Since it was a gift in return for the man's marriage proposal, Yu Haoran did not refuse. He stood up and took the pill bottle that contained the Purple Heart demon-breaking pill and cupped his hands to thank Zhongli Mingjing. After gesturing for the beautiful woman to leave, Zhongli Mingjing turned his head and nodded to the second beautiful woman holding the tray. When the second peerless beauty slowly walked to his side, Zhongli Mingjing also reached out to pick up the pill bottle on the tray, and then poured out the pills within the pill bottle. First stage First Grade Jade Spirit Soul Fusion Pill. Compared to his joy when he obtained the rank 1 First Grade Purple Heart Demon Breaking Pill, Yu Haoran's expression was rather calm when he saw the second pill that Zhongli Mingjing poured out. He stated the grade and origin of the pill rather calmly. This was because the effect of the first-tier first-grade Jade Spirit Soul Melting Pill was very similar to that of the Immortal Ascension Pill. They were both pills used to increase the chances of breaking through to the martial god realm. However, compared to the Immortal Ascension Pill, which had a nearly 50% chance of helping one break through, the Jade Spirit Soul Melting Pill, which had a less than 20% chance of helping one break through, was not considered a precious pill in his eyes. Thank you, Senior Mingjing. Therefore, after receiving the pill bottle from Zhongli Mingjing, Yu Haoran cupped his hands and thanked him before tossing the pill bottle to Wu Jingjun behind him. He told Wu Jingjun to return to Fengrun City and deliver the Stage 1 Jade Spirit Soul Fusion Pill to General Lan Rong. Yu Haoran's actions of handling the Stage 1 Jade Spirit Soul Melting Pill did not displease Zhongli Mingjing in the slightest. He still had a smile on his face as he turned his head and nodded at the third peerless beauty. The third peerless beauty slowly walked over. Although she was also carrying an exquisite tray, what was placed on the tray was not a pill bottle, but a jade pendant with the words "Return" carved on the front. Pill God Yu. This is a jade pendant that can be used to gather luck. It can be said to be one of the most precious treasures of my Zhongli family. Zhongli Mingjing smiled as he reached out to pick up the jade pendant on the tray. His eyes were filled with anticipation as he looked at Yu Haoran. When Zhongli Qingyang, who was sitting on the wide chair to the left, saw the two words, Destiny, carved on the back of the jade pendant in Zhongli Mingjing's hand, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He immediately understood why Zhongli Mingjing had taken the initiative to take out a treasure from the secret vault to give to Yu Haoran. At the same time, when he thought of how Zhongli Mingjing had inquired about the growth of the Destiny's child, Jixing, he also had doubts about Yu Haoran's true identity. Therefore, his eyes were also filled with shock and anticipation as he looked at Yu Haoran. Other than the protection of the heavenly Tao law, the battle for the hidden dragon luck, and the continuous rise in fame and popularity that could gather luck, he had never heard of a treasure that could gather luck on its own. Therefore, Yu Haoran, whose attention was completely attracted by the jade pendant, did not notice the abnormalities of Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, nor did he guard himself as he directly reached out to take the jade pendant. However, the moment his right hand held the jade pendant, the 4 words, "Return to Destiny," on the front and back of the jade pendant immediately left the jade pendant and floated in the air. Then, the 4 words were rearranged. "Return to Destiny! Return to Destiny!" The sudden change in the jade pendant immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. Looking at the 4 characters that had been rearranged in the air, Zhongli Qingyang, Zhongli Shuiqin and Qingfeng, who knew what the change of the jade pendant meant, abruptly stood up and read the 4 characters aloud together with Zhongli Mingjing in shock. Wu Jingjun, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, Palace, and Long-Armed Ape, who did not know what the jade pendant represented, softly read out the 4 words with a puzzled expression. "Zhongli Mingjing, how dare you test me?" The moment the jade pendant changed, the aura of destiny suddenly erupted from his heart, allowing Yu Haoran to immediately know the true origin of the jade pendant. It was made using the destiny stone that could stimulate the aura of destiny. Before he truly solved the problems of the Yushu Temple, the ancient demon race, and the ancient god and demon race, he did not want too many people to know the secret of the Destiny's child. Therefore, he was very dissatisfied that Zhongli Mingjing used the Destiny Stone to make the jade pendant, forcing him to take the initiative to reveal his identity as the Destiny's child. "Pil Godyu, please don't be angry. Mingjing will give a reasonable explanation." After hearing Yu Haoran's angry reprimand, Zhongli Mingjing quickly recovered from the shock and hurriedly explained. Yu Haoran's reprimand also woke Qingfeng, Zhongli Qingyang, and the others up. Then, they looked at him with eyes full of surprise and confusion. Looking up at the 4 words floating in the air, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light, and he directly crushed the jade pendant in his hand. Immediately after, the 4 words floating in the air rushed to his chest at lightning speed, and then quickly fused with the aura of destiny in his heart. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran looked at Qingfeng and Zhongli Shuiqin. Seeing the surprise and anticipation in their eyes, he finally nodded and admitted, "Just as you know, I am the Destiny's child who can start and end the immeasurable calamity." After receiving Yu Haoran's personal admission, Qingfeng and Zhongli Shuiqin were even more surprised. At the same time, they looked at the entrance of the conference hall and the 9 beauties. Chapter 1901. In the Zhongli clan's meeting hall. "Everyone, don't worry. I guarantee that these 9 girls will not reveal Pil Godyu's true identity." Seeing Qingfeng and the others looking at the 9 beauties, Zhongli Mingjing knew what they were worried about and hurriedly explained with a smile. "Because they are puppets without souls and self-awareness. They are also a gift that the Zhongli clan intends to give to Pil Godyu." Puppets? After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's explanation, whether it was Qingfeng, Wu Jingjun, and the others who were shocked by the identity of Destiny's child, or Yu Haoran, who was in a bad mood, they all subconsciously looked at the 9 beauties with disbelief in their eyes. Regardless of whether it was their delicate skin or their lively eyes, the 9 beauties in front of them were no different from real beauties. Moreover, even if they used their divine senses to examine them carefully, they would not be able to tell that they were puppets at all. Seeing Yu Haoran and the others' puzzled expressions, Zhongli Mingjing was not surprised at all. He turned his head and ordered the beauties beside him. "Orchid, take off the jade pendant from your neck." After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's order, The beauty called Orchid held the tray with one hand and took off the pink jade pendant from her neck with the other. The moment the jade pendant left Lan Hua's neck, an incomparably powerful and fierce aura erupted from the originally gentle and tender beauty. At the same time, her bright eyes were immediately replaced by violent and bloodthirsty red eyes. Flesh puppet. The aura that exploded from Orchid's body, and the sudden change in her eyes caused Yu Haoran to quickly recall the records of the puppet technique in the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance. Coincidentally, there was a very cruel puppet secret technique that was exactly the same as Orchid's current state. This is a puppet secret technique that uses the flesh and blood of a living body to forcefully extract 1 spiritual and 3 physical souls from the soul and refine it into a flesh puppet that can be used for enjoyment and control. It is also a top-grade puppet that can continue to grow and become stronger through cultivation. That's right. When he heard Yu Haoran point out the true origin of the orchid, Zhongli Mingjing's eyes flashed with a trace of shock. He nodded in confirmation and hurriedly explained. After all, it was a taboo in the profound sky continent to refine a living body into a puppet. He did not want Yu Haoran to misunderstand the character of the Zhongli family. This was during the period when the talisman Dao prospered during the recent ancient times. I obtained it from a martial god of the talisman Dao that I killed, and then I've always kept it in the clan's secret vault. After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's explanation, Zhongli Qingyang, who had been sitting upright on the wide chair, had a trace of envy and desire in his eyes. However, when he saw Yu Haoran gazing at the peerless beauty, he recalled that he had just confirmed his identity as the Chosen One. The envy and desire in his eyes were quickly replaced by calmness and indifference. Yu Haoran looked at the orchid with a shocked expression, not because of the cruelty of the flesh puppet's refining method. After all, in the nearly 100 years of experience in his previous life, some of the things he had seen and done with his own eyes were dozens of times crueler than refining a puppet. Instead, it was because the process of refining a top-notch puppet already involved the entire cultivation system of the talisman Dao. It could be used as the most complete foundation of the talisman Dao inheritance. In other words, with the 9 near-perfect puppets in front of him, not only could he officially step into the talisman Dao, but he could also reach the peak of the talisman Dao realm in a short period of time. Therefore, when he thought of the 9 peerless beauties that Zhongli Mingjing had just mentioned and would be given to him as a gift, Yu Haoran's eyes immediately revealed a tempted expression. Zhongli Mingjing secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the unhappiness in Yu Haoran's eyes being replaced by a tempted expression. He knew that he had to strike while the iron was hot and continue to gain Yu Haoran's favor, completely eliminating the hidden danger that came from his risky probing just now. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing indicated for the orchid to put on the jade pendant that could suppress his violent and bloodthirsty personality again. Then, he turned his head and nodded at the 4th beauty who was holding a jade box. Then, the 4th beauty walked slowly in front of Yu Haoran, and Zhongli Mingjing directly opened the jade box in her hands. This is the golden grass that has reached the 3rd grade of the 1st level. When Yu Haoran saw Zhongli Mingjing open the jade box, there was a golden spirit herb that was only 2 inches long. It gave off a noble and dignified aura. Yu Haoran recalled the spirit herb for a moment before revealing its origin and grayed with shock in his eyes. That's right. To be able to advance to the Pill God realm, other than having extraordinary alchemy skills and monstrous talent in alchemy, one had to be familiar with and understand different medicinal ingredients. This was also the foundation of whether one could advance smoothly in the end. Therefore, Yu Haoran was able to recognize the origin and grade of the spiritual grass at a glance. Zhongli Mingjing was not surprised at all as he nodded and handed the jade box to Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at Zhongli Mingjing, then lowered his head to look at the jade box in his hands. After thinking for a while, he reached out to take the jade box and used Yuan Qi to wrap it up, then handed it to Lu Yuan and explained, Senior Brother Lu, the golden grass is also known as the holy sword grass. Not only can it be used to increase the invincible offensive power of the way of the sword, it can also be used to soften the hidden dangers of the way of the sword. Therefore, when you choose to break through to the martial god realm in the way of the sword, use the holy sword grass to completely perfect your way of the sword. Junior Brother Yu, thank you. Lu Yuan could even give away one of the 3 great spiritual roots, the ginseng fruit, without hesitation. Therefore, when faced with Yu Haoran's gift of rank 1, rank 3 golden grass, Lu Yuan did not hesitate too much. After thanking him, he reached out to take the jade box containing the golden grass. Zhongli Mingjing motioned for the 5th beautiful woman to come to Yu Haoran with the jade box. He reached out to open the jade box and revealed the treasures inside. This is. Looking at the 3 cherry-sized, blood-red stones in the jade box, exuding a trace of evil aura, Yu Haoran narrowed his eyes and began to recall carefully, as well as to check the inherited memories of the Destiny Stone tablet. However, the result was that he found nothing. This was because in the inherited memories of the Destiny Stone tablet and his own memories, there was no information about the origins of the 3 strange stones in front of him. Brother Yu, this is the Demon Venerable Stone that contains the blood essence of a supreme expert of the Demon Clan. Just as Yu Haoran was thinking hard about the origins of the 3 stones in the jade box, Pallas, who was attracted by the evil aura, suddenly stood up and walked toward the jade box with a look of desire in his eyes. Chapter 1902. In the Zhongli family's meeting hall. Seeing the strong desire in the eyes of Pallas and long-armed ape, and listening to Pallas's introduction of the 3 demon venerable stones, Yu Haoran gradually guessed Zhongli Mingjing's true intention and method of returning the gift. Zhongli Mingjing was probably trying to curry favor with his family and friends to further strengthen their relationship. That way, he would be able to obtain Lin Huang's full protection during the immeasurable calamity. Although Zhongli Mingjing's intention and method were to scheme against Lin Huang, the starting point and the end result were good. At the same time, it would prevent Zhongli Mingjing from contacting his ancestor who was far away in the void. Therefore, Lin Huang didn't directly expose Zhongli Mingjing's intentions, but he also accepted Zhongli Mingjing's method of flattery with a clear conscience. After thinking about all this, Yu Haoran took the jade box from Zhongli Mingjing's hands and tossed 2 demon venerable stones to Pallas and long-armed ape respectively. The remaining demon venerable stone was given to Black Bear, who had just broken through to the peak of venerable state in the beast pet space. After all, Black Bear's ancestral bloodline wasn't inferior to Pallas and long-armed apes. As for Winged Dragon and Ancestral Dragon, since their bloodlines belonged to the ancestral level, they didn't need the demon venerable stone to evolve their bloodlines. After Yu Haoran finished distributing the 3 demon venerable stones, Zhongli Mingjing turned his head and nodded at the 6th peerless beauty who was holding a jade box. These are the Sarira prayer beads of a Buddhist monk. When Lin Huang saw that Zhongli Mingjing had opened the 4th jade box, he saw a stone bead that emitted a faint golden glow and gave off a peaceful aura. A piece of information from the Destiny Stone tablet's memory inheritance immediately appeared in his mind, allowing Yu Haoran to recognize the origin of the stone bead. That's right, these are the Sarira prayer beads left behind by a Buddhist monk before he passed away. Zhongli Mingjing nodded as he confirmed the origin of the stone bead. There was a hint of reluctance in his tone as he explained further. Moreover, the owner of these Sarira prayer beads was Buddha Subhuti, who was known as the Buddha of the Middle Ages. Not only was Subhuti a supreme being of the martial Tao, but he was also a supreme expert of the formula Tao who had mastered the mysteries of the law of trapping. Therefore, the Sarira prayer beads he left behind can greatly improve one's state of mind and protect one's mind from losing oneself. After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's detailed introduction of the Sarira prayer beads, Yu Haoran's expression shook slightly, and a trace of gratitude appeared in his eyes. The mantra's mantra was at the pinnacle of innescences, was a peak venerable state supreme's mantra. The main reason why he was unwilling to let Yusiki cultivate was because he was worried that she would eventually lose herself in the Heart Sutra and deprive her of her emotions. In the end, it would lead to them becoming strangers or even enemies on the battlefield. Although Yusiki's mantra had already reached the third level of the mantra's mantra, and she hadn't completely forgotten about the kinship between blood relatives, he was worried that as Yusiki's cultivation broke through the martial god and the venerable state, she might eventually take the path of the supreme venerable and become a cold-blooded person who didn't recognize her own family. The Saraira rosary beads left behind by the Supreme Master Subhuti could solve this hidden danger for her, allowing her to improve her cultivation and strength without being deprived of her emotions by the mental sutras. How could he not be grateful for this? Therefore, after reaching out to take the jade box containing the Saraira prayer beads, Yuhaoran cupped his hands in thanks and gave him a promise within his ability. Senior Mingjing, I, Yuhaoran, will remember the kindness of the Saraira prayer beads. Sensing the sincerity and gratitude in Yuhaoran's tone, Zhongli Mingjing, who was originally a little reluctant, suddenly felt a sense of joy in his heart. Therefore, he waved his hand with a smile on his face. As long as Pilgadu likes it. Sister, when you break through the martial god state, directly put the Saraira prayer beads in your mouth. Yuhaoran instructed Yusiki with a solemn expression as he wrapped the jade box with yuan power and delivered it to Yusiki. In this way, the Saraira prayer beads will not only allow you to guard your heart and not forget the existence of your family because of the transformation of your body and divine soul, but also greatly improve your mental state cultivation, allowing you to adapt to the power of the breakthrough faster. After slowly opening her eyes and looking at Yuhaoran, Yusiki's cold eyes flashed with a trace of tenderness. She reached out to take the jade box containing the Saraira prayer beads, and then closed her eyes again to immerse herself in cultivation. After seeing Yusiki put away the jade box containing the Saraira prayer beads, Zhongli Mingjing continued to nod to the seventh peerless beauty. Just like the first two peerless beauties, the seventh peerless beauty held a jade plate made of 1,000-year-old mysterious ice in her hands and slowly walked in front of Yuhaoran. Zhongli Mingjing reached out to pinch the red cloth covering the jade plate. When he saw Qin Feng looking at the jade plate, he reached out to take off the red cloth. This is... Looking at the special utensil made of 9 divine dragons placed on the jade plate, Yuhaoran could not help but frown. Although he didn't recognize the origin of the treasure placed on the jade plate, this treasure gave him a very intimate and familiar feeling. This is the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield made by a mysterious Taoist in the Middle Ancient times. Just when Yuhaoran was trying to recall the origin of the treasure in front of him, Qin Feng's surprised voice suddenly came to his ears. Senior brother Qin Feng, do you know the origin of this treasure? Yuhaoran immediately turned his head and asked. Yes. Qin Feng nodded and stepped to the jade plate. His eyes revealed a look of surprise and desire as he explained. At the beginning of the Middle Ancient times, it was the time when martial arts and auxiliary cultivation were flourishing. At that time, there were many famous people in the Middle Ancient times, such as the ancestor of the Zhongli family, who was known as the oldest supreme evergreen, Supreme Laozi, who was known as the Saint of Alchemy, and the most powerful man in the Middle Ancient times, Xingtian Supreme, and so on. Among these famous people in the Middle Ancient times, there was a very mysterious Taoist who was particularly eye-catching. Because this mysterious Taoist's achievement in crafting method was not inferior to Yunzhong Supreme, who was known as the most powerful man in crafting method in the Middle Ancient times. His achievement in array Dao was also not inferior to Yuanshi Supreme, who was known as the most powerful man in array Dao in the Middle Ancient times. More importantly, this mysterious Taoist had fought 3 times against Xingtian Supreme, the number 1 expert of the Middle Ages. Not only did he not fall into a disadvantageous position, he even nearly severely injured Xingtian Supreme in the last exchange. Chapter 1903. In the meeting hall of the Zhongli family. Thaling. When Qing Feng mentioned the mysterious Taoist who was proficient in both craftsmanship doctrine and formation doctrine, Yu Haoran immediately guessed that the mysterious Taoist, who was the craftsmanship master who refined the Nine Dragons' heavenly fire shield, was Thaling in disguise. During the Hidden Dragon ranking battle in the southern region, when he was fighting against Qin Mingho, the pagoda spirit had told him that he had disguised himself and appeared in the Middle Ages for a period of time when Qin Mingho used the formation sword that could set up his own formation. At the same time, during that period of time, he had competed with Taoist in the Cloud, who was known as the top craftsmanship master, and Immortal Tong Tian, who refined the 4 immortal killing swords. In the end, he almost lost to Master in the Cloud, who was more outstanding in craftsmanship doctrine. As for almost defeating Xingtian Supreme, the top expert in the Middle Ages, although he had not heard about it from Thaling, it was not surprising that he had defeated and injured Xingtian Supreme, given that Thaling had the strength of the peak of the 9th grade supreme martial artist and his original body, the time and space victor, which was not seriously injured. At that time, my master, Zhen Yuan Tao ancestor, had met the mysterious Taoist 3 times. During the 3rd meeting, my master asked the mysterious Taoist to refine the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, which could help me reach the half-tribulation supreme martial artist realm, using 9 divine dragon corpses at the peak of the 9th grade divine realm as materials. The price was 3 ginseng fruits and 30 leaves of ginseng fruit trees. Speaking of this, Qing Feng bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of mind blood, which directly splashed on the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield. Then he said with a trace of hatred in his eyes, after the mysterious Taoist successfully refined the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, which was at the peak of the divine realm, and handed it to my master, the sinister and cunning Yuanshi supreme martial artist used a false message to cheat my master of the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield. This caused me to lose the hope of reaching the half-tribulation supreme martial artist realm and end up becoming the craftsmanship spirit of the tomb. As the mind-blood Qing Feng spat out merged with the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, which had been quietly placed on top of the jade box, gradually floated up, accompanied by waves of pure and deep dragon roars. Qing Feng's gaze shifted from the floating 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield to Yu Haoran. His eyes revealed a pleading look. "Junior brother Yu, I wonder if you can give me the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield?" In response to Qing Feng's request, Yu Haoran waved his hand with a smile. "Senior brother Qing Feng, even if the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield is not your celestial device, as long as it's useful to you, I'm willing to give it to you." "Many thanks, Junior Yu." After getting Yu Haoran's straightforward consent, Qing Feng thanked him with a grateful look in his eyes. Then, he turned around and looked straight at the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, which was beginning to burn. His 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. Roar. After the 81 seals formed by Qing Feng merged with the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield, a pure and loud dragon roar suddenly rang out in the conference hall. Along with the pure and loud dragon roar, a burning divine dragon quickly flew out of the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield and rushed directly toward Qing Feng, who had opened his arms. Without any sound of collision, the divine dragon that rushed to Qing Feng directly merged with his right arm. Then, the second divine dragon that left the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield merged with his left arm. Afterward, the 3rd dragon fused with his right leg, the 4th dragon fused with his left leg, the 5th dragon fused with his dantian, the 6th dragon fused with his sea of consciousness, the 7th dragon fused with his heart, the 8th dragon fused with his penis, and the 9th dragon fused with his body. After the 9 divine dragons that flew out of the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield merged with different parts of Qing Feng's body, a special aura was rapidly emitted from his body. A half-tribulation supreme. Feeling the power fluctuation of the special aura, Zhongli Mingjing's eyes were filled with envy and jealousy as he pointed out Qing Feng's current state. When Lu Yuan, Wu Jingjun, Zhongli Shuiqin, the Scarlet Loath, and the long-armed ape heard that Qing Feng had successfully advanced to the half-tribulation supreme realm, their eyes were filled with surprise. This meant that the prince consort's manor finally had the strength and confidence to fight against the top forces. At the same time, it could intimidate some people with bad intentions. They wouldn't dare to provoke the prince consort's manor and Feng-run city. However, Yu Haoran couldn't help but frown at Qing Feng's advancement to the half-tribulation supremacy realm. This was because Qing Feng had used the first-grade rank 1 soul-accumulating elixir to reconstruct his body and had eliminated all the hidden dangers in his body. At the same time, after losing his body and being imprisoned, his state of mind had been tempered, so he had the potential to directly break through to the supreme realm. He did not need to use the 9 Dragons' heavenly fire shield to break through to the half-tribulation supreme realm. If it were not for his lack of strength, he would have directly stopped Qing Feng's breakthrough. Since he was using this opportunity to curry favor with his family and friends to deepen his relationship with Yu Haoran and obtain the protection of fate, Zhongli Mingjing had been secretly paying attention to the changes in his expression. Seeing Yu Haoran's frown and his gaze on Qing Feng, Zhongli Mingjing thought for a moment and guessed the reason for his frown. He took the initiative to explain with a smile. Elixir deity Yu, even in the Middle Ages, when martial arts were flourishing, only about 10 martial gods at the peak of the 9th-grade martial god realm, who had the potential to directly break through to the supreme realm, could successfully trigger the supreme thunder punishment. In the end, only 1 or 2 martial gods could safely pass through the supreme thunder punishment and successfully reach the supreme realm. So, in the future, I will make the same choice as Taoist Qing Feng. After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's explanation, Yu Haoran's frown eased, but his eyes were still full of pity. Because he had the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Calamity Spiritual Rat to control fate and the improvement of the environment due to the recovery of spiritual qi, Qing Feng could continue to accumulate his potential and then try to break through to the supreme realm. Moreover, even if he failed to break through to the supreme realm, it would not have any impact on his cultivation and strength. In this regard, Zhongli Mingjing did not continue to persuade him. Instead, he turned his head and nodded at the 8th peerless beauty, who was also holding a jade box covered by a red cloth. When the 8th peerless beauty walked slowly in front of Yu Haoran, Zhongli Mingjing, whose eyes were full of expectation, directly reached out and removed the red cloth on the jade box, revealing the treasure placed on the jade box. Chapter 1904. In the meeting hall of the Zhongli family. Back when he was in the Green Lotus Cave abode in the depths of the Qinling Mountains, the pagoda spirit had told him in detail about the grade and power of the innate spirit treasure, the 5 elements formation flag. A single formation flag had the defensive power of a god high-level formation flag. If 2 formation flags were combined, their defensive power would reach the peak of the god realm. If 3 formation flags were combined, their defensive power would reach the lower supreme level, and if 4 formation flags were combined, their defensive power would reach the middle supreme level. If 5 formation flags were combined, not only would their defensive power reach the upper supreme level, but they could also form an independent space that could strangle the opponent. More importantly, the defensive power of the upper supreme level was achieved by the innate 5 elements formation flag without its weapon spirit. If all 5 formation flags could nurture their own weapon spirit, their combined defensive power would reach the peak of the supreme level, comparable to the terrifying defensive power of the Bell of Chaos and the Spacetime Victor. That's right, it's the Xianyuan Water Control Formation Flag of the Innate Spiritual Treasure 5 Elements Formation Flag. As Zhongli Mingjing nodded in confirmation, He looked at Yu Haoran with a trace of envy. Zhongli Shuai's, the heir of the family who had participated in the exploration of Jinyuan tomb, had used the water mirror secret technique to reconstruct the scene of Yu Haoran's tribulation. It clearly showed that he had the green lotus formation flag, the floating flame formation flag, and the white cloud boundary flag. As long as he could find the last Wuji yellow formation flag, he would be able to assemble the innate 5 elements formation flag with the strongest defensive power. He would then be invincible against the 3 annihilation spirits and the Yushu Temple. Thank you, Senior Mingjing. After putting away the Xianyuan water control formation flag on the jade plate, Yu Haoran cupped his hands and thanked him. He also felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. It didn't matter whether it was Lu Yuan's level 1 3rd grade golden grass, palace and the long-armed ape's demon venerable stone, Yusiki's Sarira prayer beads, Qing Feng's 9 dragons heavenly fire shield, or the level 1 1st grade purple heart demon breaking elixir, the level 1 1st grade jade soul fusion elixir and the Xianyuan water control formation flag. The value of the 7 treasures that Zhongli Mingjing had given him far exceeded the 9 gifts that he had prepared for the marriage proposal. He felt that he had been forced to take advantage of them. Yu Haoran's current helpless expression was exactly what Zhongli Mingjing had hoped to achieve. Thus, while he was secretly pleased with himself, he turned his head and nodded at the last peerless beauty who was holding the jade plate. When Yu Haoran saw that the 9th peerless beauty was holding an exquisite jade pendant with a beautiful woman carved on the front of the jade plate, his eyes immediately filled with vigilance as he asked with lingering fear. Sounds of items falling and shattering could be heard in the conference hall. Bang, 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 bang. Along with the sound of items falling and shattering, the 9 gentle and beautiful women turned into white light and merged into the jade pendant. Pil God Yu, these 9 peerless flesh puppets are Mingjing's 9th gift to you. Zhongli Mingjing said with a smile as he handed the jade pendant with the 9 peerless beauties to Yu Haoran. These 9 flesh puppets can take care of you in all aspects. They can also form the low-grade divine 9 palaces 9 directions killing formation. They can help you block and kill opponents below the peak of level 7 martial god. Thank you, Senior Mingjing. Yu Haoran did not hesitate to cup his hands and thank the 9 peerless flesh puppets who seemed to be enjoying themselves. Then, he put away the jade pendant. This made Zhongli Qingyang, who was seated on the wide chair, reveal a look of disappointment. However, Zhongli Qingyang didn't know if he was disappointed because of Yu Haoran's desire for pleasure or because he couldn't get the 9 flesh puppets. Regardless of whether it was the 8 gifts or the power of the rules of order and the 5 Kane gems, he had to cultivate in seclusion to transform them into his own cultivation and strength. Yu Haoran didn't want to waste any more time. He cupped his hands and was about to leave when the conference hall shook violently. Along with the violent tremors of the palace, a series of rumbling sounds suddenly came from outside the meeting hall. Yu Haoran, the Hengduan mountain range's heavenly cycle star formation, the ancient god test grounds, and the demon sealing secret realm's heavenly cycle star formation have been broken at the same time. The ancient monster tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe have been reborn. Thaling's voice sounded in Yi Futian's mind when everyone was puzzled by the explosions. After all, the pagoda spirit had left a telepathic connection in the 3 sealing arrays, allowing him to sense the changes in the sealing arrays for the first time. Even though he was immersed in the fusion of the Chaos Mark and the Rui Bell, he could sense the changes in the sealing formations immediately. Senior Mingjing, clan leader Qingyang, the ancient monster tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe have returned to the Tianxian continent. Yu Haoran reminded Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang when he dashed out of the conference hall after receiving Thaling's reminder. Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, whose faces were filled with shock, followed closely behind without any hesitation. The Sunset Lake, where the Zhongli family was located, was about 1.7 million kilometers away from Xianying City and the Hengduan mountain range in the southern region. It was far beyond the range of his divine thought. Therefore, Yu Haoran dashed out of the conference hall and immediately tore the void to approach the southern region. Although the range of Zhongli Mingjing and Qing Feng's divine thought could barely reach Xianying City and the Hengduan mountain range in the southern region, protecting Yu Haoran's safety was the most important thing. Therefore, they also tore the void to chase after him. After tearing the void 7 times, Yu Haoran arrived at the top of a 10,000-meter-high mountain less than 1,000 miles away from the southern region. He stopped approaching and immediately mobilized his divine thought to check the situation in the Hengduan mountain range. When his divine thought could only barely reach the edge of the Hengduan mountain range due to the strong evil qi and murderous aura, his divine thought could sense more and more. At this time, the entire Hengduan mountain range was filled with all kinds of demonic beasts. Some were standing, some were crawling, and some were flying. At this moment, the void above the Hengduan mountain range was forcefully shattered by the terrifying demonic aura and evil qi that emerged from the mountain range. Space-time turbulence constantly washed down, but it was forcefully devoured by some powerful and special demonic beasts. Chapter 1905. The Southern Region. After leaving the Hengduan mountain range quietly, Yu Haoran redirected his divine sense to Xianying City, where the ancient god clan was sealed. At this moment, the entire Xianying City was shrouded in a dense and wholly milky white light. At this moment, Xianying City, which had been emptied a long time ago, was filled with handsome and dignified ancient god clan members. Several terrifying auras vaguely came from the palace of Xianying City. Yu Haoran did not take the risk to enter the city to investigate. Instead, he quietly left Xianying City and sent his divine sense to the demon sealing secret realm, which was thousands of miles away. The valley in front of the demon sealing secret realm was exactly the same as Xianying City. It was completely shrouded in a dense and evil black light, and several terrifying auras were hidden at the entrance to the secret realm. According to the aura fluctuation emitted by Qing Feng when he broke through in the conference hall, Yu Haoran knew that the owners of the powerful auras in Xianying City and the valley were all terrifying experts at the level of half-tribulation supreme. After instantly withdrawing his divine sense, Yu Haoran used his consciousness to discuss with the life calamity spirit mouse that was residing in his heart. Brother Blackrat, can you use the Destiny Steel to find out the true strength of the ancient demon clan and the ancient god clan? How many half-tribulation supreme and supreme experts are there? Master, I'm afraid not now. The doomed spirit rat shook its head and explained. That's because I can't use the secret technique of destiny to gather information about half-tribulation supremes and supremes before I reach the supreme stage. I can't use the Destiny Stone Steel to control the fates of these experts. After hearing the doomed spirit rat's explanation, Yu Haoran felt a strong sense of disappointment. He raised his head and continued to look in the direction of the southern region, hoping that the ancient demon clan and the ancient god clan would erupt into an endless battle due to the accumulated hatred of the ancient god clan and the ancient god clan, as he and Thaling had planned. In the end, both sides would suffer great losses. But unfortunately, after waiting for nearly 3 hours, not only did the primordial goblins and the primordial goblins not erupt into any conflict, but instead they quietly stayed at the place where they had escaped from, as if they were preparing to set up camp for a long time. This made Yu Haoran realize that his plan with the tower spirit had most likely failed. Because the ancient god clan and the ancient god clan had gone through a painful lesson, before they completely eliminated the threats that could threaten their clan, they would not have an intense conflict. Furthermore, the Green Fox clan, the ancient demon clan, was known for their scheming. The ancient demon clan would not launch a war rash action in the near future. The ancient demon clan and the ancient god clan's ancient god clan would be continent, 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 continents, continent, continent, continent. However, to Howren, this was the best time for him to accumulate strength. After all, with the help of the rule-bending power and the connate crystals, he could achieve a transformation in his cultivation and strength in a short time. Meanwhile, his friends and family could also use the opportunity to achieve immortality and achieve the martial god realm. When he thought up to here, Howren turned around and cupped his hands towards Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang. Senior Mingjing, clan leader Qingyang, it seems that the primordial demon clan and the primordial god and demon clan will not bring disaster to the profound sky continent for the time being. Therefore, I plan to return to my residence and cultivate for a period of time. Alright. It just so happens that we also need to make some preparations in advance to guard against the ancient demon race and the ancient fiend god race's attack. Zhongli Mingjing nodded and replied, understanding Howren's urgent desire to raise his cultivation base and strength. In the prince's mansion, Howren returned to the cultivation room in his courtyard after handing over the jade pendant that could control the 9 beautiful flesh puppets to Qin Lingfei. His consciousness informed Victor's second clone to set up a formation that could transform chaotic spiritual energy using the 5 innate crystals and the lower Tier 1 spiritual vein. Howren sat cross-legged in the corner of the cultivation room and used the first stage Purple Heart Soul Shattering Elixir to recover the potential of his overdrawn mental state. At the same time, he tried his best to regulate his emotions and state of mind. The formation that could transform chaotic spiritual energy was not complicated. It took less than 10 minutes for his second clone to successfully set it up. After getting up and signaling his second clone to return to Victor, Howren looked at the gray mass of air that was condensed by the formation with a look of anticipation in his eyes. He took a deep breath and used a spell to open a gap in the formation. Then, he stepped into the gray mass of air that was condensed by the formation. However, as soon as his right leg stepped into the gray mass of air, an unimaginably terrifying pressure made him feel as if the meridians in his right leg were about to break and his bones were about to shatter. Fortunately, the damage and pain caused by the terrifying pressure was still within the range that he could endure. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and stepped into the formation with his left leg. Withstanding the terrifying pressure on his body and divine soul, Howren sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the Heavenly Mandate Heart Sutra. Within the array formation, light gray chaos spiritual energy appeared. Boom, 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 boom. After absorbing only a few wisps of gray chaotic energy, 4 muffled thunderclaps echoed out of his body in succession. Following the 4 deep thunderous sounds, his mental cultivation, physical body grade, divine power, and soul power, which had just reached the martial god realm, instantly reached the limit of a peak first-grade martial god. At the same time, they all advanced to the early second-grade martial god realm. According to the Destiny Stone Tablet's detailed introduction of chaotic spiritual energy, Howren knew that chaotic spiritual energy was the most suitable energy for increasing one's cultivation level and strength. However, he never thought that the effects of chaotic spiritual energy would be so heaven-defying. This made him feel wild with joy. At the same time, he was very confident that he would be able to resolve the crisis of the primordial demon race and the primordial god and demon race. He even had the confidence to face the spirits of triple annihilation that could control the consciousness of the heavens. After shaking his head hard to get rid of the distracting thoughts that appeared in his mind, Howren immersed himself in his cultivation. His cultivation and strength began to increase by leaps and bounds as if he was sitting on a rocket. The news of the primordial demon race and the primordial god and demon race's sudden reappearance spread to every corner of the Tianxian continent at lightning speed. To ordinary factions and independent cultivators, this news was as frightening as the end of the world. In order to avoid the brutal primordial demon race and the primordial god and demon race, countless ordinary factions and independent cultivators either joined the top factions or brought their families to hide in remote mountains and forests. To the top factions and independent cultivators, the premature reappearance of the primordial demon race and the primordial god and demon race also caught them off guard. This caused them to change their original plans, and they also knew that the true turmoil of the Tianxian continent had arrived. Chapter 1906. While all the living beings in the Tianxian continent were looking at the ancient demon clan and the ancient god and devil clan that had appeared in the southern region, no one noticed that a strong tornado had suddenly appeared in the center of a desolate desert on the border between the southern and western regions. Along with the tornadoes that stirred up countless fine sand, strange, handsome creatures with a pair of wings on their backs and 4 eyes flew out of the tornadoes one after another. The tornado did not appear for long, less than half an hour, but the number of strange living beings that emerged from the tornado was a shocking 100,000. The moment the tornado completely disappeared, the void in the center of the desert was suddenly forcefully torn apart. Then, an elder in a green Taoist robe walked out of the torn void, followed by a child carrying Black Puppy. After seeing the child carrying Black Puppy, the 100,000 strange living beings immediately knelt down and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Your Highness." The child called Prince walked in front of the green-robed old man. He looked coldly at his 100,000 subordinates and said in an indifferent tone, "Rise, all of you." "Thank you, Your Highness." The 100,000 Netherworld clan warriors hurriedly expressed their gratitude. "Your subordinate, Baal, greets Your Highness Han Hao." After the 100,000 Netherworld clan warriors had all stood up, a middle-aged Netherworld clan warrior exuding a terrifying aura appeared in front of the child called Prince. He then cupped his fists and bowed again. "General Ba, how has my father been?" Han Hao asked indifferently as he stroked Black Puppy's soft fur. "Your Highness Han Hao, His Majesty the Netherworld Emperor is still in a deep sleep in the Holy Land. However, according to the calculations of the Imperial advisors, His Majesty the Netherworld Emperor will wake up from his deep sleep in 3 months and at most half a year. He will then lead the Netherworld clan army to the Tianxian continent and restore the glory of our ancient Netherworld clan," Baal replied respectfully and excitedly. Han Hao, who was carrying Black Puppy, nodded and then continued to ask with a cold expression, "General Ba, how are my brothers and sisters doing?" However, when he mentioned the words brothers and sisters, a trace of hatred and murderous intent flashed across Han Hao's eyes. Han Han, Han Jing, Han Chu, Han Liang, and Han Yang, the 5 princes died in the trial 3 years ago. Ignoring the hatred and killing intent that flashed through Han Hao's eyes, Buffle answered truthfully. "Qiu Yun, Qiu Hui, Qiu Lan, Qiu Fei, Qiu Shui, and Qiu Yu went missing 2 years ago. It's exactly as I expected." Hearing that his 5 brothers and 6 sisters were in trouble, Han Hao didn't feel sad at all. Instead, a happy smile appeared on his face. Then, he put away the smile on his face, and his expression became cold again. He ordered the 100,000 Nether tribe experts in front of him. Just 2 days ago, the ancient demon clan and the ancient god and devil clan broke the seal and descended upon the profound sky continent. Before we can confirm the exact location of the Destiny's Child and the Destiny Stone Tablet, it's best that we don't have any conflicts with these 3 clans. Therefore, your next mission is to set up camp here and exterminate all living creatures in this desert to prevent the news of our arrival in the profound sky continent from being exposed. Understood. After the 100,000 Nether tribe experts received the order, they immediately sent out 50,000 Emperor Wu, demigod, and martial god experts to exterminate all living creatures in all directions. The remaining 50,000 martial honors and Emperor Wu experts used the materials they carried with them to start building luxurious palaces and defenses on the spot. General Buffle, put away your divine wings and divine eyes. Follow me to the eastern region to find the whereabouts of the Destiny's Child and the Destiny's Stone Tablet. Looking at the well-trained 100,000 Nether Tribe experts, Han Hao nodded in satisfaction. Then, he turned around and stepped back into the void crack that had yet to recover. He then instructed Buffle. This subordinate obeys. After cupping his fists and acknowledging the order, Buffle took out a token with a divine hound of hell engraved on it and handed it to another half-tribulation supreme general. Then, he stepped into the void crack. Yushu Temple, in the conference hall of the Heavenly Palace. Ji Xing, who was sitting on the dragon throne in the main hall, looked at the clan leaders and sect masters who were sitting on the wide chairs on both sides of the hall with a trace of anger in his eyes. With the help of his identity as the Destiny's Child, and the strong support of Spirit Extinguisher, it took him nearly 5 days to finally integrate the countless forces that had come to report to the gathering order. Then, he used a combination of kindness and power to completely subdue the leaders of these forces. According to the original plan, Ji Xing would personally lead the army to battle the 4 guardian families. He would use this opportunity to officially confirm the Yushu Temple's position as the overlord and consolidate his reputation as the #1 person in the profound Sky Continent. However, he had never expected that the ancient demon tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe would appear in the world ahead of time. This had a great impact on his upcoming battle plan. This was because Spirit Extinguisher's order was to not only ignore the ancient demon tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe that had appeared in the world, but also to attack the 4 guardian families according to the original plan and time. However, when faced with the potential threat of the Primordial Demon Clan and the Primordial God Clan, not only did these patriarchs and sect masters refuse to send troops to attack the 4 great guardian clans, they even strongly requested to join forces with the 4 great guardian clans to annihilate the Primordial Demon Clan and the Primordial God Clan. This caused Ji Xing to fall into a dilemma. If he listened to Spirit Extinguisher's order, then the alliance that he had painstakingly built would very likely fall short of success. However, if he listened to the patriarchs and sect masters' suggestions, then the forces would offend Spirit Extinguisher, who could control the will of the heavens, and lose their protection and support. Alliance Master Ji, if you don't agree to join forces with the 4 guardian families to annihilate the ancient demon tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe, then our Lan family will immediately withdraw from the alliance and give up our position as elders. Just as Ji Xing did not know how to make a choice, the new patriarch of the Lan family, Lan Juanhao, who was sitting on the right side of the hall, threatened with a strong dissatisfaction in his eyes. Patriarch Lan is right. Our Sima family has the same request. Sima Qian, who came from the Middle Ages family, immediately responded to Lan Juanhao's threat. Our Flowing Cloud sect agrees with Patriarch Lan and Patriarch Sima's request. Huang Jianling, who came from the Flowing Cloud sect, one of the top 7 sects, also agreed. Our Xiandao school agrees. Our Zhao family. I. Chapter 1907. Yushu Temple. In the meeting hall of the Heavenly Palace. Who wants to leave the Heavenly Alliance? Just as Ji Xing did not know how to deal with the threat of everyone present, a cold voice suddenly sounded in the entire meeting hall. The moment he heard the cold and indifferent voice, Ji Xing immediately calmed down from his panic, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Everyone in the hall could not help but change their expressions, especially Lan Juanhao, who was leading the group to threaten Ji Xing. His eyes revealed a trace of horror and fear. Lan Juanhao, are you the one who wants to take the initiative to give up your position as an elder and lead the entire Lan family to leave the Heavenly Alliance established by the Destiny's Child? Accompanied by a murderous voice, a white-haired old man in a starry Taoist robe appeared out of thin air in the meeting hall. Destiny's child Ji Xing greets Tao Lord Starry Sky. Ji Xing, who suddenly stood up, hurriedly walked in front of the old man in the starry Taoist robe, and then bowed respectfully. Yes. After nodding coldly in response, Tao Lord Starry Sky looked straight at the flustered Lan Juanhao. He did not hide the dissatisfaction and murderous intent in his eyes at all. Lord Tao Lord, the clear wave lake where my Lan family is located is too close to the southern region. I was really worried that the ancient demon race would threaten the safety of the family, so I offended the Destiny's child in a moment of confusion. I hope Lord Tao Lord can forgive me. Faced with Tao Lord Starry Sky's murderous questioning, Lan Juanhao hurriedly stood up and explained and begged. Lan Juanhao, is the safety of your Lan family more important now? Or is the order issued by the Destiny's child more important? Lan Juanhao's explanation and plea did not eliminate the strong murderous intent in Tao Lord Starry Sky's eyes. He continued to question with a cold expression. If he answered according to his heart, then the safety of the Lan family was definitely more important. Otherwise, how could Ji Xing, who was only at the early 7th grade Emperor Wu, be qualified to command the patriarchs and sect masters of the inherited families and sects in front of him? What these people really valued was not the identity of the Destiny's child and the support of the 3 spirit destroyers. However, if he answered according to his heart, not only would he offend Tao Lord Starry Sky, but he would also give him an excuse to kill him and deter the others. Therefore, Lan Juanhao did not know how to answer the 2 choices given by Tao Lord Vast Star. Lan Juanhao, answer me. Tao Lord Starry Sky suddenly took a step forward and shouted. Lan Juanhao, answer the Tao Lord's question immediately. At the same time, Ji Xing, who had the support of Tao Lord Vast Star, thought of the various difficulties and oppression that Lan Juanhao had made when he established the Heavenly Alliance. When he thought of Lan Juanhao's blatant threat just now, anger surged in his heart, causing him to take a step forward and shout. If it was just a question from Tao Lord Vast Star, Lan Juanhao might have compromised and taken a step back to answer the orders of the Son of Destiny. However, when faced with Ji Xing's question, as the head of a hidden family clan, Lan Juanhao, who had always looked down on Ji Xing, anger and arrogance surged from his heart, causing him to impulsively give an answer that he would regret for the rest of his life. Nonsense, of course the safety of my Lan clan is more important. Very good. After hearing Lan Juanhao's reply, a happy smile instantly replaced his indifference. Tao Lord Vast Star smiled and said very well before appearing in front of him in a flash. In addition to the support of the few divine patriarchs behind him, Lan Juanhao was able to temporarily take over the position of the head of the family clan because of his powerful cultivation and strength. Therefore, the moment he saw Tao Lord Vast Star make a move, Lan Juanhao quickly took out a superior-grade God-state sword and immediately mobilized the strength of a peak Third Tribulation demigod to directly attack the vital point between his opponent's eyebrows. In the face of Lan Juanhao's rapid attack, Tao Lord Vast Star did not panic at all. He stretched out his right hand and accurately pinched the tip of the sword that was piercing between his eyebrows. Then, he gently broke it. But, with a crisp cracking sound in the hall, the tip of the sword, which had reached the superior grade of the deity realm, was broken by Tao Lord Starry's 2 fingers. This caused Lan Juanhao's expression to change instantly. At the same time, he immediately thought of the nomological power that the other party could control with the help of the will of the heavens. Without any hesitation, Lan Juanhao immediately activated the top-notch escape talisman that he took out instantly. He planned to temporarily escape from the Yushu temple and then return to the family clan to discuss with the patriarchs how to deal with the threat of Spirit Destroyer and Destiny's Child. In the face of Lan Juanhao's top-notch escape talisman, Tao Lord Vast Star, whose expression did not change at all, reached out and pinched the broken tip of the sword before gently throwing it away. The tip of the sword, which was endowed with nomological power, instantly pierced through the defense condensed by the escape talisman and shot directly at Lon Juanhao's eyebrows. Then, the nomological power endowed in the tip of the sword broke through the defense of the sea of consciousness and directly strangled the soul in the sea of consciousness space. The top-notch escape talisman that was successfully activated only took away a corpse that had lost its soul. After glancing at everyone in the hall with a murderous gaze, Tao Lord Vast Star finally stopped at Ji Xing. After putting away the smile on his face, he reminded him with a cold expression, "Destiny's child, I've already done what I should and can do for you. If you still can't completely control the Heavenly Alliance and follow our orders, then it's time to give up the position of the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Alliance. Don't worry, Tao Lord Vast Star. Ji Xing will definitely send troops to fight the 4 Guardian clans within the stipulated time." After hearing Tao Lord Vast Star's threatening reminder, Ji Xing, whose eyes flashed with a trace of panic, immediately patted his chest and guaranteed, "I hope so." Looking at Ji Xing, who had been reduced to a chess piece, Tao Lord Vast Star could not help but sigh softly before instantly disappearing before everyone's eyes. Ji Xing, who had regained his confidence, strode back to the dragon throne. Then, he turned around and sat down again before giving the order with a serious expression. "In 3 days, send troops to fight the Blue Dragon clan of the 4 Guardian clans." "Yes, sir." With the bloody lesson just now, no matter how dissatisfied everyone present was, they still obediently stood up and accepted the order. In the training room of the prince's mansion, 5 hours. With the help of the 5 innate crystals and the chaotic spiritual qi transformed by the formation, Yu Haoran only spent 5 hours to advance his mental cultivation, physical grade, divine power, and soul power to the peak of the 8th grade martial god realm. However, when he wanted to use the chaotic spiritual qi to continue to break through to the early stage of the 9th grade martial god realm, he realized that his potential to increase his realm and strength had reached its limit. Chapter 1908. In the cultivation room of the prince's mansion. With his cultivation of the peak 8th grade martial god realm, the grade of his flesh, the accumulation of his god force and soul force, and the baptism of the god tribulation lightning and the rewards, Yu Haoran was confident that he could achieve the peak 9th grade martial god realm and possess strength close to the first tribulation supreme realm. However, this was not what he wanted. After experiencing the breakthroughs of the martial saint, martial honor, and Emperor Wu, he knew how difficult it was to break through to the peak of the 10th level of the martial god realm. If he did not make use of the opportunity to break through and the help of the god's tribulation thunder penalty, it would take him at least 8 to 10 years to break through to the peak of the 10th level of the martial god realm. Although he would gain immortality after breaking through to the martial god realm, he would not be able to face the complicated situation in the Tianxian continent, the potential pressure from the ancient demon tribe and the ancient god and demon tribe, and the threat of the 3 annihilators. Even 3 to 5 months was too long for him, let alone 8 to 10 years. Therefore, after careful consideration, Yu Haoran finally decided to give up the idea of helping him break through to the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm. He planned to use other methods to improve his potential and accumulation so that he could be prepared to break through to the peak of the 10th level of the martial god realm in one fell swoop and lay a good foundation for breaking through to the supreme honorable realm in the future. After making up his mind, Yu Haoran was about to remove the formation to transform the chaotic spiritual qi to reduce the consumption of the 5 innate crystals when Thaling's excited voice suddenly rang in his mind. "Yu Haoran, this is the highest grade of energy in the world, and it's also the most suitable chaotic spiritual qi to improve one's cultivation and strength." "That's right." As Yu Haoran nodded to confirm, He also explained in detail the specific reason why the chaotic spiritual chi was produced. After all, it was all thanks to the millions of spirit-devouring ants that Thaling discovered and slaughtered in time that he was able to obtain the 5 innate crystals to transform the chaotic spiritual chi. The chaotic spiritual chi was transformed from the innate crystals in the spirit-devouring ant queen's body. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Thaling was glad that Yu Haoran had acted cautiously and quickly made his own request. Yu Haoran, when we first met, I once told you that a large amount of pure life essence would be needed to heal me and the victor's injuries. Do you still remember? Of course I remember. Yu Haoran nodded and replied. After all, when they first met, Thaling had directly given him 3 months of time acceleration in exchange for 3 months of his life essence. How could he forget such an unforgettable thing? Actually, for us, pre-world supreme treasures and pre-world spirit treasures born in the chaos, using pure life essence to heal ourselves is just a last resort. The most suitable method for us to heal is the primal chaos spiritual chi. Because the primal chaos spiritual chi contains a trace of origin energy that can allow us to. Thaling, from now on, use the primal chaos spiritual chi to heal yourself. Yu Haoran stood up abruptly and stepped out of the formation space. At the same time, he directly interrupted Thaling's detailed introduction of the primal chaos spiritual chi and made his attitude clear. Yu Haoran, who had used the primal chaos spiritual chi to cultivate, should know very well the powerful effect of the primal chaos spiritual chi on cultivation and strength. In the face of such a precious treasure, he could directly give it to Thaling without any hesitation. This made Thaling speechless and moved him to the point that he did not know what to say. If he were in Thaling's shoes, he might not have made such a choice immediately. Thaling, you and I have known each other for nearly 4 years. It can be said that you are the person who is most familiar with and understands me, Yu Haoran, in this world. Seeing that Thaling could not even speak, Yu Haoran could understand how emotional he was at this moment. However, overly emotional emotions would affect the recovery of his injuries and waste the precious primal chaos spiritual chi. Therefore, he immediately pretended to be unhappy and criticized him. Based on the relationship and feelings between you and me, in the face of the primal chaos spiritual chi that can allow you and the real victor to quickly heal your injuries, you only need to say a word. There is no need to beat around the bush and test me at all. Yu Haoran, I'm sorry, I understand. After expressing his deep apology, Thaling took a deep breath and quickly calmed his emotional emotions. Then, he brought the real victor and descended into the formation space. Yu Haoran, according to the amount of primal chaos spiritual chi converted from the 5 innate crystals, it can at least heal about 70% of the injuries of the real Thaling. It can also allow me to return to the peak of 3rd grade sovereign realm. Although Yu Haoran did not have any selfish motives in giving away the primal chaos spiritual chi, Thaling could not be selfish and not do anything. Therefore, before absorbing the primal chaos spiritual chi in the formation space, he solemnly promised Yu Haoran. At that time, no matter if it is the spirits of 3 annihilations that can control the consciousness of the heavens, or the supreme being experts that return to the Tianxian continent from the endless void, or the supreme being divine beasts of the ancient demon clan and the ancient fiend god clan, they will not be able to harm you at all. After hearing Thaling's promise, although Yu Haoran's expression did not change at all, he could not help but heave a long sigh of relief in his heart. This was because it was just as Thaling had thought. After personally experiencing the effects of the primal chaos spiritual chi on one's cultivation and strength, he was even more aware of the preciousness and importance of the primal chaos spiritual chi. To be honest, he was not willing to selflessly give away all the primal chaos spiritual chi to Thaling. Instead, he intended to keep it as an important auxiliary means for him to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm, or even the supreme sovereign realm in the future. However, Thaling had been protecting and taking care of him like a father all these years. He was also guiding him like a teacher. This made it impossible for him to act according to his true intentions. In the end, he could only suppress the reluctance in his heart and do something that made Thaling feel grateful. Fortunately, Thaling's promise in the end made him feel that his selfless act of giving away the primal chaos spiritual chi had at least yielded a good result. It also gave him some time to improve his own potential. Thaling, hurry up and use the primal chaos spiritual chi to heal your injuries. Although Thaling's promise made him feel a little better, the thought of the incomparably precious primal chaos spiritual chi being slowly absorbed by Thaling still made him feel a little pained and reluctant to part with it. Therefore, Yuhaoran did not want to see the primal chaos spiritual chi and left the cultivation room after giving his instructions. Yuhaoran, don't worry. Thaling clenched his fists and swore to himself as he watched Yuhaoran leave the cultivation room. Chapter 1909. Inside the prince's mansion. After leaving the cultivation room, Yuhaoran wanted to find Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace to have a heart-to-heart talk. Then, he would do some inappropriate things to relieve his depression. However, when he scanned the entire mansion with his divine thought, he was surprised to find that there was no one in the mansion. This puzzled him, and at the same time, a bad feeling arose in his heart. After all, the spirits of three annihilation, who knew his true identity, and the ancient demon tribe and the ancient celestial demon tribe, could attack Feng Run City and the prince's mansion at any time. Therefore, without any delay, he directly mobilized his divine thought, which was not inferior to that of a peak 9th grade martial god, and quickly scanned the entire Feng Run City. After scanning tens of thousands of miles around Feng Run City, he finally found Qin Lingfei and the others in the depths of Qinghu mountain range. When he saw Yusiki, who was floating in the air above Qinghu, taking out the ginseng fruit and Sarira rosary beads, Yuhaoran immediately guessed the reason why they were in Qinghu mountain range. After leaving the prince's mansion, he directly tore the void and appeared at the edge of Qinghu. After feeling the powerful fluctuations of power behind them, Qin Lingfei and the others immediately turned around nervously. My husband! After seeing Yuhaoran walk out of the void crack, Qin Lingfei immediately rushed over excitedly. Yuhaoran stretched out his hand to hold Qin Lingfei's slender waist and greeted the others. Junior brother Yu. Originally, he wanted to respond to Yuhaoran's greeting. However, as a half-tribulation supreme, Qing Feng immediately discovered the earth-shaking changes in Yuhaoran. When he thought of how Yuhaoran's strength had undergone a fundamental transformation after only half a day of secluded cultivation, he was extremely shocked and did not know what to say. Qing Feng's abnormal behavior immediately attracted the attention of others. Their cultivation and strength were not as strong as Qing Feng's, so they could not accurately detect the earth-shaking changes in Yuhaoran's strength. However, through their own keen senses, they also knew that Yuhaoran must have had an amazing harvest during the half-day closed-door cultivation. Therefore, their eyes were also full of shock. Shaking his head at Qing Feng and the others, Yuhaoran did not explain why his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Instead, he looked up at Yusiki, who had swallowed the ginseng fruit and placed the Sarira prayer beads under the tip of her tongue. His eyes were filled with worry and expectation. Among all the people in the prince's mansion, Yusiki was the most outstanding one in terms of talent, potential, mental cultivation method, and profound accumulation. Even in terms of mental cultivation method and accumulation of potential, she was far better than Yuhaoran. Otherwise, Yusiki could not directly possess the strength of the peak of the third-level martial god realm with Emperor Wu's cultivation at the peak of the ninth-level martial god realm. However, according to the records of the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty in the Destiny Stone Tablets Memory Inheritance, if the accumulation before breaking through the martial God realm was deeper, the power of the Divine Tribulation would be stronger. Therefore, Yuhauran was worried about whether his sister could successfully pass the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty. However, there were always two sides to everything. The stronger the power of the God's Tribulation Lightning, the greater the harvest during the Tribulation Transcendence, and the greater the reward of the God's Tribulation Lightning. Therefore, while he was worried, he couldn't help but hope that the power of the God's Tribulation Lightning would increase. Feeling the gaze of a familiar aura, Yusiki slowly opened her eyes and looked at Yuhauran. After a trace of tenderness flashed in her eyes, she quickly closed her eyes again. Then, she ran the Taishian mental cultivation method to absorb the energy of the ginseng fruit and began to break through to the martial God realm, which was immortal. As the pure spiritual power in the ginseng fruit was absorbed by the Taishian mental cultivation method and then pushed Yusiki's cultivation to break through to the martial God realm, dark clouds within a radius of 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and tens of thousands of miles quickly gathered above the Green Lake. Therefore, it also alarmed countless forces and individual cultivator experts. However, the heavy pressure formed by the dark clouds and the oppressive aura made all the warriors below the level of Emperor Wu carefully stay in the place where they cultivated. They did not dare to take the risk to check the reason for the gathering of the dark clouds. Only a dozen demigod realm false god experts relied on their powerful cultivation and strength to soar into the sky and search for the source and reason of the gathering of the dark clouds. However, when they saw Yusiki floating above the Green Lake and Qin Lingfei and the others at the edge of the Green Lake, they turned around and returned to the place where they cultivated without any hesitation. According to the area where the dark clouds gathered and the thickness of the accumulation, the power of the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty that Yusiki was about to encounter had far surpassed the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty that Wu Jingjun attracted when he broke through to the martial God realm. More importantly, the speed at which the dark clouds gathered and accumulated showed no signs of slowing down. This made Yuhauran's face gradually turn gloomy. When he helped Wu Jingjun resist the 9th Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty, the strength of the Golden Dragon condensed by the 9th Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty was already at the peak of the 3rd grade martial God realm. In that case, how was Yusiki going to resist the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty that was at least 10 times more powerful? Thinking of this, Yuhauran soared into the sky and left the Green Lake mountain range. Then, with the speed of the flashing law, he headed straight for the prince's mansion that was thousands of miles away. In just 2 seconds, he returned to the cultivation room in the mansion. He used his mind to wake up Thaling, who was immersed in healing, and asked directly, "Thaling, give me the Green Lotus Formation Flag, the Floating Flame Formation Flag, the White Cloud Formation Flag, and the Mystic Origin Water Control Formation Flag immediately." "Yuhauran, what did you find?" Seeing Yuhauran's slightly flustered expression, Thaling took out the 4 formation flags and asked with concern. "Thaling, my sister is preparing for the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty. She needs the innate 5 elements formation flag to resist the lightning attack from the Divine Tribulation Thunder Penalty." After reaching out to take the 4 formation flags, Yuhauran rushed out of the cultivation room and left an explanation with his mind. Oh no! After hearing Yuhauran's explanation, Thaling knew that something was wrong. At the same time, he immediately used a spell to transfer the 5 innate crystals and the formation that transformed the chaotic spiritual chi into the spacetime victor. Then, he used the victor to cut open the void of the mansion and arrived at the edge of the Green Lake at the same time as Yuhauran. After returning to the edge of the Green Lake, Yuhauran quickly wrapped the 4 innate formation flags with his divine power and sent them to Yusiki. Then, he quickly explained, "Sister, these are the 4 innate formation flags that were born in the chaos before heaven and earth were created. The power of each formation flag is equivalent to that of a God Realm upper-grade defensive magic weapon. When combined, their power is comparable to that of a supreme medium-grade defensive magic weapon. Quickly use these 4 formation flags to resist the Divine Tribulation Thunder penalty. Chapter 1910. In the Qinghu Mountain Range. Xiao Ran, thank you. To Yu Haoran's surprise, Yusiki not only smiled happily at the 4 connate array flags that he had given her, but she also called him by his nickname. It seemed that she had not expressed her feelings like this since the Hidden Dragon Roll competition in the 5 regions. This made him very happy and delighted. This indicated that his sister had great hopes of breaking through the shackles of the emotionless realm and regaining the emotionless realm. However, what really surprised Yu Haoran was that after Yusiki thanked him with a smile, she waved her hand and returned the 4 connate array flags to him. Then, she took out the celestial slashing sword that he had temporarily lent her. Clang! Accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of the sharp sword being unsheathed, Yusiki held the scabbard with one hand and pointed the sword at the dark clouds with the other. She exuded strong confidence as she spoke. One person, one sword, is enough. Yusiki's domineering confidence was very helpful for the upcoming heavenly tribulation. However, to Yu Haoran, who had experienced at least 10 heavenly tribulations, he was very clear about the consequences of such blind confidence. Therefore, he planned to continue persuading his sister to use the 4 connate 5 elements array flags to defend against the heavenly tribulation. However, at this moment, Thaling's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Yu Haoran, listen to your sister. Thaling, why are you here? Yu Haoran asked in confusion when he heard Thaling's reminder. This was because Thaling should be in the mansion's cultivation room, recovering from his injuries with the help of the connate crystal and the chaotic spiritual qi converted by the array. Moreover, how did he avoid being detected by his divine soul and secretly return to the space in his sea of consciousness? Yu Haoran, I transferred the primordial crystal and the formation to the victor in my main body, then used the chaos spiritual qi to activate the space-time energy's ability to travel. Finally, I teleported to your sea of consciousness, so your soul in your sea of consciousness can't sense my presence. Thaling knew that his method of silently returning to the knowledge space would definitely arouse Yu Haoran's confusion and suspicion. Therefore, before he took the initiative to ask, he took the initiative to explain. Then, he began to answer Yu Haoran's questions. As for why I listened to your sister, it's because Siki has a special physique, and the great mystery mental cultivation method that she cultivates has the characteristic of becoming more courageous the more she suffers. If Siki can overcome the martial god's divine tribulation lightning tribulation all by herself, then her special constitution will be fully activated. The Great Mystery Heart technique and the accompanying secret technique will be completely integrated, and she will truly open the door to the martial saint realm. Although Thaling's explanation was extremely tempting, it was all based on the premise that his sister could successfully transcend the tribulation. What if she failed in the end? Alas! After hearing Yu Haoran's worries, Thaling couldn't help but sigh softly. He looked through the knowledge space at Yusiki, who was floating in the air, and explained in a helpless tone. If Siki fails her tribulation in the end, then her soul will be destroyed. This is also the price one has to pay to cultivate the Great Mystery Heart Sutra. Moreover, even if Siki wants to use the 4-5 elements formation flags to resist the divine tribulation lightning tribulation, it will be useless because the Yuan Qi and soul power condensed by the Great Mystery mental cultivation method naturally repels all primordial treasures and primordial spirit treasures. Alas! After hearing Thaling's explanation that was filled with helplessness, Yu Haoran also couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. He directly put away the 4 innate 5 elements formation flags and then, together with Qin Lingfei and the others, paid attention to Yusiki's lightning punishment that was about to begin. Although Thaling had returned to the spacetime Victor's formation, he had also reserved a portion of his energy to pay attention to Yusiki's tribulation, so that he could lend a hand in time if there were any problems. Boom! Just as the dark clouds covered an area of 990,000 kilometers, and the dark clouds were so thick that the entire Qinghu mountain range was engulfed in boundless darkness, a deafening thunder roared in the sky. Accompanied by the deafening roar of thunder, a golden lightning bolt as thick as a finger quickly rushed out from the dark clouds and directly struck towards Yusiki, who was floating in the air. The moment the golden thunderbolt rushed out of the dark clouds, Yusiki directly rushed into the sky, and at the same time, the immortal ending sword in her hand slashed out a finger-thick sword chi that exuded a fierce aura. Boom! Accompanied by a roar that resounded through the sky, the fierce sword chi directly scattered and shattered the golden thunderbolt. Then, Yusiki raised her head to look at the thunderstorm that filled the sky. She looked at the dark clouds that were emitting an oppressive aura. Her emotionless eyes flashed with a fierce light, and she continued to speed up into the sky with the celestial ending sword in her hand. Prince Consort, what is Big Sister doing? Seeing Yusiki ignore the bombardment of the thunderstorm and quickly rush into the dark clouds, Qin Lingfei, who had never experienced the thunder tribulations, asked with a puzzled look in her eyes. The Sword Without Trace, Yunxiang, Fang Man, and Xiang Muling, who had also never experienced the baptism of the thunder tribulations, turned to look at him at the same time. Everyone says that I, Yu Haoran, am a daring person, but now it seems that I am far inferior to Big Sister. Seeing Yusiki about to rush into the dark clouds, Yu Haoran revealed a bitter smile on his face as he explained. Ling Fei Wuhan, think carefully about what I did when I dealt with the thunder tribulations during the 5 regions Hidden Dragon Rankings competition. You will know what Big Sister wants to do now. After explaining, Yu Haoran looked at Yusiki, who had disappeared into the dark clouds, with a worried look in his eyes. Attacking the lightning that descended from the thunder tribulations was already a challenge to the authority of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, directly rushing into the dark clouds that nurtured the thunder tribulations was no longer a challenge to the authority of the heavenly Tao. It was a complete humiliation and a slap in the face. Therefore, less than 3 seconds after Yusiki rushed into the dark clouds that enveloped the entire Qinghu mountain range suddenly started to boil violently. Accompanied by the intense boiling, golden giants wearing armor and holding huge swords in their hands started to flash in the dark clouds from time to time. Evildoers bring calamity to the mortal world. Divine weapons descend to destroy them. Seeing the golden giants that kept flashing in the dark clouds, Thaling, who had been watching Yusiki's thunder tribulations, exclaimed with a hint of envy in his eyes. Yu Haoran, the thunder tribulations that Siki is going through this time are also called the immortal tribulations. It is a thunder tribulation that tests whether the person who is going through the tribulation is qualified to become a supreme being. Chapter 1911. In Qinghu Mountain Range. Thaling, according to your understanding of the power of the immortal tribulation, how confident is my sister to pass the immortal tribulation? Yu Haoran ignored the supreme realm and half-tribulation immortal realm that Thaling had mentioned. What he wanted to know the most was whether his sister, Yusiki, could successfully pass the god tribulation and become an immortal martial god. Yu Haoran, the power of the immortal tribulation is also related to the talent, potential, and accumulation of the person going through the tribulation. The higher the talent, potential, and accumulation, the more powerful the immortal tribulation will be. Thaling frowned and explained after thinking carefully for a while. According to Siki's special body constitution, the mysterious cultivation method she cultivates, and the accumulation of the immortal tribulation, the power of the immortal tribulation will probably reach the peak of the 8th level martial god realm. Therefore, I'm not sure how confident she is to pass the immortal tribulation. Hearing Thalink's uncertain answer and the strongest power of the immortal tribulation, Yuhauran suddenly felt nervous. He took out the Yuan killer sword and planned to rush into the dark clouds to help his sister block and kill the magic weapon formed by the immortal tribulation. After all, with the help of the primordial crystal and the chaotic spiritual chi transformed by the formation, he now had the strength of the peak of the 9th-level martial god realm. He was fully capable of blocking the attack of the immortal tribulation. However, the moment he rose into the air, he was suddenly stopped by the tower spirit. Yuhauran, you can't interfere with Siki's god tribulation. Why? Yuhauran asked in confusion after he stopped rising into the air. Back then, when Wu Jingjun found it difficult to resist the golden dragon formed by the divine tribulation, the tower spirit had used the excuse that the Destiny's Child and the Destiny Stone Tablet could block the detection of the heavenly Tao. It had allowed Wu Jingjun to attack the divine tribulation dragon formed by the divine tribulation. In the end, it had helped Wu Jingjun safely overcome the divine tribulation. Now, his sister, Yusiki, was facing the same crisis, so why couldn't he help her? Yuhauran, the reason why you were able to interfere with that brat Jingjuan's divine tribulation was not only because of the aura of Destiny's Child and the Destiny Stone Tablet, but also because the spirits of 3 annihilation used the power of laws contained in the will of the heavens to confuse the heavenly laws of the divine tribulation. Now that the 3 spirits of annihilation have not interfered with Siki's divine tribulation, they are unable to confuse the attention of the heavenly laws. Therefore, if you dare to interfere with the divine tribulation lightning punishment, not only will you be punished by the heavenly Tao, but you will also be forced to increase the power of the immortal tribulation lightning punishment. Facing Yuhauran's confused question, Thaling seriously explained the reason why he couldn't interfere with the divine tribulation. Thaling, what should I do? He couldn't use his defensive treasure, the 5 elements formation flag, to fend off the attack of the lightning tribulation, nor could he interfere with the increasing level of the immortal tribulation lightning punishment. Yuhauran looked at the increasing number of armored giants flashing in the dark clouds above his head and felt the aura of his sister in the dark clouds fluctuating between strong and weak. He was at a loss for what to do and asked for help. You can't do anything. You can only wait patiently. Thaling gave a nonsensical answer to Yuhauran's request for help. Total annihilation. Just as Yuhauran stared anxiously at the dark clouds above his head, his eyes filled with deep worry, a soft shout suddenly came from the dark clouds. Accompanied by the crisp shout, a terrifying destructive power suddenly exploded from the center of the dark clouds and spread out in all directions. In the face of the destructive power, whether it was the thick black clouds or the armored giants, they were all instantly crushed into powder and drifted down. As the destructive power dispersed the thick dark clouds, the entire Qinghu mountain range regained its light, and Yuhauran and the others could clearly see Yusiki, who was in the center of the dark clouds and lightning. However, when he saw Yusiki's pale face, the trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, and her disheveled appearance, Yuhauran's heart ached for her, and he immediately soared into the sky. When he was about to check on his sister's condition, Thaling's reminder sounded in his mind. Yuhauran, give the rest of your low-grade holy pulse to Siki. Let her use the last strike of the immortal tribulation thunder to completely transform her cultivation and strength. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yuhauran suddenly stopped and took out the low-grade holy pulse without any hesitation or heartache. Then, he wrapped it with divine power and quickly sent it to Yusiki. Sister, quickly use the low-grade holy pulse to replenish your energy. Then, use the remaining pure spiritual power of the holy pulse to complete the final transformation of the martial god realm. Lifting the scattered hair on her forehead, Yusiki looked at Yuhauran with a trace of tenderness in her eyes. Then, she nodded silently and reached out to hold the low-grade holy pulse. Then, she used the secret method of the Taishan mental cultivation method to refine the holy pulse divine dragon, which was nearly 1 meter long, into a small earthworm 5 or 6 centimeters long in the blink of an eye. Then, she directly swallowed the shrunken holy pulse. Then, a fierce, murderous look appeared in her eyes. She looked at the black clouds that had gathered again and the armored giant that was condensed by countless thunderbolts. Howren, don't worry. Siki is about to safely pass the immortal tribulation thunder. Seeing Howren floating in the air, and unwilling to return to the ground for a long time, Thaling knew what he was worried about and hurriedly reminded him with a smile. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Howren was delighted and quickly asked, Thaling, why do you say that? Because of the fully activated special constitution and the Taishan mental cultivation method, Siki now has the strength of the peak of the 7th level of the martial god realm. And the immortal tribulation thunder that was attacked by the omnidirectional destructive fear just now only has the strength of the peak of the 8th level of the martial god realm. Looking at Siki, who was covered by the black clouds again, Thaling sighed with admiration. Therefore, with the low-grade holy pulse to replenish her energy and the celestial slashing sword to increase her attack power several times, Siki can easily pass the immortal tribulation thunder under the premise of ensuring her own safety. Then, she can enjoy the amazing rewards after the immortal tribulation thunder. After hearing Thaling's detailed explanation, Howren let out a long sigh of relief. When he returned to the ground, he quickly used his mind to instruct the destiny-stealing spirit mouse in the space in his heart to pay attention to the changes of the Destiny Stone tablet at all times to prevent anyone from secretly approaching the Qinghu mountain range. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.